Happy Sunday. How is it going today? We are, I'm Jennifer.
I'm Mars.
We're here to talk about casually comics,
Violently Comics.
violently comics. Um,
We got 2 weeks to catch up on.
2 weeks. I wasn't feeling great last week. I am still getting over the gosh darn COVID and it sucks, y'all. Um, would not recommend. 0 out of 10. Negative 10?
-10.
Wouldn't recommend. Yeah, at all. Mars, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm a little tired. A
Yeah.
little painful today, but I'm here to talk comics. I was talking to you backstage last week. One of the reasons we weren't here too is because it was just so exhausting. We finally got my giant comic cabinet moved into the house. So it's my giant filing cabinet that holds all my comics. There was no comics in the cabinet while we were moving it, but it was still a heavy cabinet to move out of my parents' basement and into my third floor apartment. So that is now here. I spent the entire Sunday going through my cabinet. So, John, if you're listening, I'm ready to hold my crown for comic gories.
Yeah. That cabinet looks like a beast. I
It is
think
a
it's
beast.
very cool that you have like a cabinet that you can put your comics in because I just store them like a peasant. I store them in like the BCW short boxes, long boxes, and I've got I think about 30 about 30, and I don't know. I need to purge.
I just
So
love
maybe
the idea because you said they were under your bed at one point.
they
I
are
just love
still,
I
yeah.
love the idea that you don't actually have a bed frame, that is just your mattress on top of all of your BCW boxes.
There is a bed frame. There is a bed frame, I assure you. And they fit like there is like less than an inch of room left. So sometimes it's like hard to like pull them out if I do need them. That's why I can't do like I'm not good at doing comic gories with John's comics with kids because I need more than 30 seconds. So
Way more than 30 seconds.
yeah. Well, there's the chat is popping off. So I'm going to go ahead and say hello to everyone. So if you are in the chat, if you are watching, give us a howdy, say hello. I'm going to say hello first to our friend TM Nerdy. Thank you so much for being here. Our friend Carrie, officially unofficial geek. Thank you for being here. And hello to Stapled Spine, Horror Zine. Good morning from Oregon. Oregon. Hello to Niall. Hello, everybody. Hello to Victoria Starts. Thank you for being here. Um, the Banshee Queen. Hello and good morning / afternoon / evening. Yeah, it's morning here on the West Coast, East Coast, afternoon.
Early afternoon-ish.
Yeah, 1 o'clock. Hello to Sleepy Reader, Damien. Yabba dabba do, everyone. And then TM being the greatest type person is just saying hello to everyone. I love it so much. Hello to Bobby. I made it. Thank you for making it, friend. Hello to Paul Hedden. Thank you for being here. Who else do we have here today? Our friend John, John's Comics with Kids, who does comic gories like we were talking about. So if you ever want a fast-paced show that'll give you anxiety to be on, that'll get you sweating.
That's accurate.
Yeah. But it's a lot of fun. So, jumped a little bit. I think Travis wants to go against you.
Do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Now that I'm prepared, do it. And guess what? My comic cabinet is even closer than it was before, so
Ooh.
I am ready.
And okay, so and you organize it how?
So I'm kind of a psycho when it comes to my organization.
Chronological.
So it's by publisher in the sense of I have, all my DC stuff up top, then my Marvel stuff, and then my indie stuff on the bottom. However, when you look into the publisher, I have it organized by character alphabetically, but then when you actually get into the character, I have it organized by series. And then I have, usually depending on how many comics I have, I will have an entire section of their features. So this is any sort of cover appearances, any sort of, side stories that they might have appeared in where I've bought the comic specifically for that character. And those are organized chronologically. So it's madness.
That sounds so amazing and beautiful. And I feel like that is like you're the perfect contestant for a show like Comic Gories, where it's like you need to think of the cover, because it sounds like in that way, like where the cover would be.
I know exactly what character would fall under. I know exactly what little pool tab it's under. And I usually know what drawer it is in before I even have to go for it.
That is amazing. I just have mine in long and short boxes by publisher. And there'd be a box for Marvel, a box for DC, and then just raw dogging it like a box for indie. The indies aren't even organized by publisher. It's just indies.
It's mad. That's madness. This is our multiverse of madness.
I do have like 3 or 4 short boxes of Image comics, like specifically like, okay, I've got the whole run of like Paper Girls. Mm-hmm. That's one box. So anyways, there's a little bit of organization, but I would love to be able to organize it like that. That sounds amazing. So gonna go through a little bit more here on the chat. Hello to Manic23 from England, in a heat wave. I'm sorry to hear that. Let's see here. I don't have Mars scheduled for the season yet, but is definitely interested with her new comic book setup. Yeah. Gonna have to pit against Travis for sure. All right. So that was the whole chat. Let's go ahead and get into some news, some comic book news. Even though it's been 2 weeks, I feel like it's been
kind of quiet.
It's been a little bit quiet. So what's going on in the world of comic book news? What do we have?
So we talked about this a little bit a couple weeks ago, but Tim Anderson, who is I believe it was a Virginian or West Virginian lawyer, who was suing Barnes and Nobles for carrying Genderqueer, which we all know and love, is a biographical graphic novel that tells the story of being queer and non-binary. I believe it's non-binary. I haven't read the book myself yet. Mm-hmm. It is okay.
Non-binary. So Maya Kobabe mm-hmm. Uses AM pronouns. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So Tim Anderson has now turned his sights from Barnes and Nobles and is now suing Oni Press along with Maya Kobabe for the publication of Genderqueer. And honestly, it's just ridiculous at this point because you don't have to read the book. Yeah. It's one thing to reach out and sue a store, a corporation for carrying a book. Okay, I don't agree with it. I think you're an idiot anyway. But you have some sort of standing ground. It's a little puddle, but you have some sort of standing ground. Suing somebody for publishing a book, to me, that's ridiculousness. And it seems like the type of person Tim Anderson is, he seems like the very type of person that would be the same, my body, my choice, free speech in America. Rawr. Yeah. You're attacking somebody for publishing a book that you don't agree with and nobody's forcing you to read. And it's just scary to think about that now people can go and sue people just for creating something and putting something out there. And it's yeah. Crazy.
It definitely stinks, and it has ramifications much larger than just, say, the book Genderqueer, which is an incredible book. I would highly recommend, even if you are a cisgender person, like 100% go ahead and read it. It's a fantastic story. But you're right. It has these implications that are farther than just like the comic book community. And, what does that look like? Would someone start to, a television show talks about a theme that I'm not comfortable with. Do I sue you? And it's just shitty. It's not a good look. So, I don't know, but I feel like a couple of months ago, the story Mouse, which has been around for several decades, written about a Holocaust survivor and what their what they went through, not only during, but like kind of after the Holocaust, written from the point of view of their son. That was recently challenged by someone saying, I don't want this to be in a public library. And it was banned in a public school library. That's stupid. That's kind of silly. But like you said, this has even like,
There's larger implications, and it's going to be interesting and frightening to see what kind of stems from this, because one person did it and they can see that it's possible. Of course, there are going to be several others that do the same with other books.
Exactly.
So that being said, with all of this, lawsuit coming to light, Steens, who is a comic creator, cartoonist, and editor, and has worked at places like Lion Forge as a chief editor, came forward basically blasting Oni and saying, we can all support, Maya Kobabe, and support the creators that are under fire from this. And I wish nothing but the best for Oni and for them. But at the same time, apparently, Oni has not been paying royalties on their books. And this is even stemming from the fact that Oni is now republishing or doing another printing of Genderqueer to kind of help combat
they did like
everything that's going on.
Version of it.
And it's just kind of interesting to me, because this is not the first comic company that we've heard not paying their creators and paying their royalties. And, if you're a fan of the show or you've listened to our show, we've been on our little platform a bunch of times saying that pay your workers fair wages. And the fact that Oni isn't even paying out their royalties, it kind of worries me what's going to stem forward with this whole lawsuit and everything else going on with it. And then, of course, Sleepy Reader saying, Oni's already having financial troubles. And it's not a way to do it. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. That stinks, because then it just further puts financial duress on a company, like you said, that's already having some financial trouble. But go buy Genderqueer, apparently.
Yeah, that's the moral of the story, is go buy Genderqueer and read Genderqueer.
Rent it from your library.
And support the books that are support banned books, basically. That's what it comes down to, is support banned books.
100%. What's another, it sounds like we've got some other news topics going on.
Some other things. There's only 2 more left on the docket, but we finally, listen, it only comes out in like 2 weeks, but we finally got a Paper Girls trailer. And all right, before I get into the good, I'm going to go into the ugly.
Ooh, there's ugly.
There's ugly. And this isn't necessarily at Paper Girls. Maybe this is more so at Amazon, because Paper Girls is going to be an Amazon original. It's going to be a TV show, kind of like The Boys, which is huge and has all types of press. Why wasn't Paper Girls promoted months in advance to its release? Why is it that we didn't get any casting news, any sort of trailer, any sort of teaser until a couple weeks before the show came out? And I got a reason for being as fired up about this as I am. The biggest show right now is a little fucking show called Stranger Things. Whenever you talk to anybody in a comic shop and they have somebody come in, hey, I really like this show called Stranger Things. Is there a comic that you think I should read? The first fucking suggestion is always Paper Girls. So if you know that Stranger Things is the biggest thing since sliced bread, why are you not promoting what could possibly be a successor to it?
Do you think that Amazon knew that Netflix would be releasing Stranger Things a month or 2 ahead of Paper Girls, and was like, we're going to wait to see how this does before we start advertising? And I'm playing, this is me playing devil's advocate. Yeah. Jeff Bezos, I know you're personally watching and monitoring my internet activity. You can go fuck yourself. But I don't know.
Part of me,
that's my like reasoning for.
Part of me wants to chalk it up to stupidity. That's where I'm leaning right now, is I'm chalking it up to stupidity, because here's the thing. The Boys, which is also a comic book adaptation and is very good, by the way. Season 3 recently just released. I'm in the process of rewatching the whole series to catch up to season 3. The Boys, which is now another huge show, ended up being a sleeper hit when it first came out, because I feel, I don't really remember as much back then in terms of its advertising, but I feel like The Boys was getting the lack of advertising that Paper Girls is now and ended up becoming a sleeper hit. I'm hoping that this is what happens with Paper Girls, because from what we got from the trailer, it's everything I want. It
Yeah,
looks like it's going to be weird. It looks like it's going to be faithful. It's going to be a great coming of age story. I absolutely love the casting that they have done for the characters. We get to see the really awesome scene where Erin meets with her future self, and you get that little weird, awkward interaction. And it's like, oh, they showed it in the trailer. It's not a spoiler.
I know, but I'm saying it's like a spoiler for what happens in the comic.
I guess.
I don't know.
But listen, I'm really excited. I'm 100% on board with the show. I will be binging it as soon as it comes out. I'm hoping that they just drop the whole season instead of doing a weekly release, because I don't want to have to wait week to week. I personally, all of my angst right now for this show is coming from its lack of advertising and promotion, probably because I love Paper Girls so much and I want to see it thrive and I want to see new fans flock to it. I want it to do what Umbrella Academy did and The Boys did by extension, where it was like working in a comic book shop. We couldn't keep those books in stock. I want the same thing to happen for Paper Girls.
You know, I would say that my personal opinion is that Paper Girls is more of a popular comic book series than The Boys and The Umbrella Academy. Like, I haven't done the math.
It has more mainstream appeal.
I think so. And I do think that because it is more focused on young adults, I mean, Umbrella Academy was, but I do think that Paper Girls as a series is more recognizable. So I think that it'll just have that like awareness on its own. I would say, though, my perception of The Boys, I don't remember there being a ton of advertising for it, but at the time I did work at a comic book shop back in Florida, and I feel like every Wednesday people were coming in, did you see the new episode, did you see the new episode? So everyone was talking about it when I worked at a comic book shop back then. So yeah. I hope that Paper Girls does do the same thing. I hope it brings more readers in, because once again, I think that Paper Girls is more accessible as a series. So I really hope that Paper Girls does the magic trick that brings people into shops. I don't know if there has been a comic book series, whether it's Marvel, whether it's DC, whether it's any independent book, that has brought a lot of readers into comic shops. And Paper Girls, I think, might be it. However, Brian K. Vaughan, as a writer, adapting his work into shows has not been successful.
Because we've seen it with Why the Last Man. Wasn't there another one on HBO that didn't do too well? It lasted like one season and we didn't get anything after that. Yeah. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, Prayer Circle created for Paper Girls to break the curse of the Brian K. Vaughan saga. So that way, eventually, when Saga does get adapted, and it's only adapted as an animation. Again, this is my future Prayer Circle. I only want an animated Saga, that we get more than one season.
As someone who does not like very many animated TV shows, I hope Saga does not get animated. That's my hope and
prayer. You heard it here first.
So House divided here, per usual. I personally don't want to see Saga as a, but that's because something like Invincible was, I don't like it, the Invincible cartoon. I don't know. I know people love Invincible, but so maybe, I don't know, Invincible, it did get a lot of advertising.
Now here comes the question. This is something I want to pose to both you and to the chat and maybe even to myself. We have seen, and possibly more, this is just the ones that are on top of my brain right now, we've seen 3 comic book adaptations from Amazon so far. So at this point, I'm calling Amazon, I hate to say this, Amazon is the savior of comic book adaptations. We've seen The Boys, we've seen Invincible, and we're now seeing Paper Girls. What comic book do we want to see adapted next?
I mean, I want to say Saga, but I would almost, I know this is kind of, maybe this is like a weird opinion, I would love to see someone like James Cameron do Saga, just the way that he did with Avatar. I think that
as long as it's not 3D, because if you're thinking of the same scene that I'm thinking of in Saga, I do not want that in 3D.
What scene? What are you talking about? The water scene?
No, I'm thinking of the giant ogre penis scene.
I would love to see that
No,
3D.
thank you.
I would love to see that 3D. That I'm making that scene 3D in my head right now.
No thanks. I'll pass. Personally, I think at this point in time, I think I want to see Seven Secrets final answer adapted. I got some feelings about Seven Secrets, and we'll talk about that. But
Yeah, because the
so far
issue
right
finale
now, the
came
series
out
finale
last week.
came out last week. But so far, final answer. However, Banshee Queen coming in with a snot girl,
Ooh,
and
yeah. We keep sorry.
and snot girl adapted. They're pretty good.
I could see that.
Good.
Yeah.
Do it like a Euphoria-esque type show.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Look at that. Look at that.
I agree.
We're
Like
onto
make
something
it
here.
make it a little bit like R-rated, like push the bounds, or would you say keep Snot Girl more PG-13?
PG-13, but kind of push it a little bit, so it's more like older teenagers can watch it.
PG-16. We're making new ratings
Sure,
here.
PG-16. We can do that too. And then we have Carrie coming in with saying "Bitch Planet," which again would be, considering we've seen things like Handmaid's Tale, and I'm on an Orange Is the New Black rewatch, and I feel like those two things kind of intersect when we talk about Bitch Planet. I think it's possible. I think it's time for something like that. I could definitely see it.
I also agree with Sleepy Reader here with Love and Rocket show might work. I agree.
I just want to see more comic adaptation. Now, The Boys, granted, is superheroes, but it was based off of an indie comic. I just want to see more indie comics get the adaptation instead of seeing the MCU and the DCU over and over and over again.
I agree, especially because one of my biggest complaints about Marvel and DC is that if someone goes and watches Spider-Man, they go into a comic book shop and they say, I want to get into Spider-Man. How do I do that? And it's like, okay, cool. Do you have thousands of dollars and thousands of hours to invest in, the last 80 years of comic books?
Yeah. No, I agree. But speaking of MCU, look at that little segue there. We got the newest entry into the MCU this weekend with a little movie called Thor Love and Thunder. And I know we haven't really talked about it too much, but from my brief understanding, we have very, very different opinions on this movie. So, Jen, you want to tell everybody, including myself, how you feel about Mr. Taika Waititi and his Thor Love and Thunder?
Here's the thing is that I love Taika Waititi. I have been a fan of his work for a while now. Thor Ragnarok is like quite possibly my favorite.
It's the best MCU film. You can say it. It's okay.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it. I also love his work on a little show called Our Flag Means Death. You should watch that if you haven't already because it's really good. And then watch it 10 more times. So I love his like indie work. I love that he brought that energy to the MCU. I think the MCU really needed that. I love that. I love those elements on Love and Thunder. But I think that this movie, I thought Love and Thunder was too short. If that's my biggest complaint, that's a good complaint to have. I think that it was too short. I think that it needed to be fleshed out more. I think that we also needed a better reintroduction to the character of Jane Foster Thor. She has not been there for about a decade now, right? It feels like she needed, half of the movie to be like finding her journey, see her becoming Jane Foster Thor. Like we don't even, this is getting a little bit spoilery here, but we don't even get to see her character fleshed out a little bit more. Anyways, those are my biggest complaints, is that we didn't get to see Jane Foster Thor fleshed out enough. I think that we could have used a 2 or 3 movie arc that we got to see that, even if it didn't include Gore the God Butcher. Like maybe if Gore didn't show up until like the second or third movie in this imaginary Jennifer arc of
The
Thor
imaginary.
Love Thunder.
So what you're saying is that you just need to go and read a comic. Because
Yeah,
everything you've described
100% is like, and that's me, and I understand that's me and my expectations of the movie, but I would say there were moments where this is getting a little bit spoilery, so if you haven't watched it, please mute for about 30 seconds, maybe a minute. But there's a moment in the movie that Jane Foster is like, okay, I have cancer, it's not working, this sucks. Well, maybe Mjolnir can go ahead and help me. So she gets drawn to Mjolnir. Mjolnir is broken up, it's on the island, it's an artifact, and you don't even see her like put it together. We see her become Thor, like it happens off screen. So in my brain, I imagine what happened was this movie was supposed to be longer and scenes were cut out. It felt like there was a lot of the movie that was cut out. When it comes, other than Jane Foster in this movie, Gore the God Butcher was not fleshed out either. I needed him to be a lot more fleshed out. I also didn't see Christian Bale as Gore. Like, this could have been any actor, and I couldn't give a shit less. I don't give a shit about fucking Gore's nose or anything like that. Like, people are online being like, yeah, like they gave him a nose. He doesn't have a nose in the comic book, whatever. That I couldn't give a shit about that. One thing that I did appreciate about Gore as a villain is that we didn't make him a palatable villain that people will look at and be like, oh, that's the villain that I want to be. So I appreciate that. I also, thirdly, this will be my last like rant about it. I was promised a gay movie. I was promised a gay Marvel movie. It was, in fact, the gayest Marvel movie, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough gay for Jennifer. It had gay moments, but I needed more like...
more gay,
Okay.
please. Except
That's
it's Disney and it's Marvel, and that's about as gay as we're gonna get it. Because at the end of the day, Marvel only likes having its gays around when it's convenient for them. They give them a nice little Pride Month special, but then they don't give them any series, and then they never show these characters again until it's Pride Month again. I'm looking directly at half of the cast of Young Avengers.
Yeah. So I'm going to wrap all this up and just say I still enjoyed this movie. I'm going to go back and rewatch this. I'm probably going to watch it the day that it comes out on Disney Plus. I may even go see it in theaters again. I'm probably going to go ahead and do that. I enjoyed the movie, but there was a lot to critique and for me to pull apart. Knowing how it goes, I may go and see it again with like a lighter, lifted attitude. I also wasn't feeling great the day that it came out, so like that's all on me. So please tell me why you loved it so I can fall in love with this movie again.
So I did love this movie. So I went into this movie expecting to hate it because, there was a TikTok floating around of a little press conference or panel thing where somebody asked how gay the movie is. Natalie Portman says, so gay. Everybody goes wild, rah, rah, rah. And then the day of the embargo release, everybody was saying that the TikTok was a lie. There were no gay moments in it at all. So I already was going to this movie expecting to hate it. And I decided I was going to turn my brain off and just enjoy it. And I think me turning my brain off made me really enjoy it because not only, so I didn't look at the plot. I was like, I'm here to just have a fun time because let's be honest, we are on year 12 of the MCU. Everything is very formulaic. So I'm going to get bored by no matter what plot you give me. Because at this point, I know exactly what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, the exact moment it's going to happen. I'm here for the presentation, the funness of your movie, the dialogue in your movie, the characters in your movie, and that's about it. And for me, it delivered. I thought that the action scenes in this movie were extremely dynamic. They weren't formulaic like we've seen before. In fact, there is an entire fight scene that takes place on the edge of a planet, and you're kind of spinning with the orb of the planet, and it's entirely in black and white. There's actually a huge sequence in the movie that's entirely in black and white, which I thought was phenomenal. And I love when Marvel gets to do artsy shit like this because it breaks that formulaic mold. Not only that, I love Valkyrie. Every time Valkyrie shows up on screen, I'm like, that's it. As long as she's in the movie, I'm gonna enjoy it. So there's thing number one for me. But a lot of the criticisms that you're having with, we didn't get to see time with her fleshed out. We didn't get to see time with her and her origin story. I personally was actually okay with that because, again, breaking the Marvel mold. I don't need to sit through an hour of this character discovering their powers, knowing how they work, especially when they dated a superhero who knows how these powers work. They've experienced them firsthand in several different ways, if I might add. So somebody like Jane Foster is probably already in tune with how these powers work. And now that she has them, she's like, okay, I'm just going to do it anyway. And I liked it too, because that's kind of how the book was presented. When Jane Foster, or the Mighty Thor, first appeared, we weren't given an origin story. This character showed up on screen and started.
Who she was, really.
I think that that's the only thing about seeing Jane Foster on screen that kind of upsets me, but I also understand it's not realistic. Is I remember reading Mighty Thor when it came out. It was one of the only Marvel comics I was reading in single issues and that I picked up. And I remember hanging on each and every month, wondering who it was, to the point where Jason Aaron had to write in a scene where they kissed because people were so convinced that Mighty Thor was actually his mother, Freya. And he had to write in a scene saying, hey, y'all got to figure something else out because it's not his mom. And I loved that. And I understand it's not feasible in a movie because obviously if Natalie Portman is in the credits, you know who it's going to be.
Yeah.
But I kind of like just being thrown into it and along for the ride and having fun. I like that it was short enough for my goldfish brain where I'm not squirming around every 5 minutes like fucking Eternals because that movie was too goddamn long.
100%.
But
Eternals needed to be, this is one of those things where I'm like, Eternals needed to be a show. And it wasn't, but I don't necessarily need a Jane Foster show, like, but I still want a 3 movie arc. But
I just really, really liked the movie. I didn't love it as much as Thor Ragnarok, I think, because I just like some of the jokes in Ragnarok more. But that being said, I do think that Love and Thunder was able to balance both its humor and its serious moments better than Thor Ragnarok was. Because in Ragnarok, the whole planet blew up and we were cracking jokes, which wasn't appropriate. But in Thor Love and Thunder, we're dealing with cancer and somebody who's dying of cancer and a hero who was dying of cancer. And I think it did a good job at kind of using the humor to help with the pain of what was going on, but not as a way to overshadow it or even kind of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Like minimalize it or make
make fun of it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, oh, we're just slapping on a Band-Aid. So I enjoyed it. I am telling people, don't go by what the critics say because right now it's getting a lot of really mixed reviews.
Technically we're critics, please go by what us say.
We're technically critics, but at the end of the day, I'm telling everybody, just if you have an interest at all, or maybe even if you don't, because I really didn't even want to see this today. We were going to see it, but just kind of sit down, turn your brain off, have a good time, make your decision from there. That's what I feel.
I do agree with that. I 100% agree with all of, like, there were some such great moments, like you said, the fighting on the one planet that what is it, the Shadow Planet or the Shadow Realm?
The Shadow Realm.
Yeah. So that was I thought that was really interesting.
And I like the goats. The goats are funny. The goats are silly. For those of you that don't know, because I feel like this is like my fun thing of telling everybody and seeing their reaction. So there are 2 goats in the movie. Don't know why they're in the movie, but they're in the movie. There's 2 goats. And the goats are played by Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire. And it is funny as shit.
Maybe that's what I needed, is that I needed to know that bit of information before seeing the movie. So now that I know that going in,
you'll have more fun. You'll have screaming Spider-Man the whole time. It's great. I love it.
So. If you had to rate this movie on a scale of 1 to 10, what would it be?
1 to 10, I'd probably give it like an 8. 7.5 to an 8.
See, that feels like that's my rating. My rating, I feel like, would be a 7 or 7.5.
Okay, well, if I have to be honest, okay, so we're gonna put no Marvel movie gets a 10. Okay, that's a lie. WandaVision gets a 10.
Oh wow.
Okay. WandaVision gets a 10 from me. It's not realistic, but it gets a 10. So if I'm being realistic, no Marvel movie, no Marvel property has hit that 10 level yet.
Okay.
All of my favorites hit a 9. So like Thor Ragnarok, Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy, if I can ignore Chris Pratt, all of those to me get that solid 9. And then I have Thor Love and Thunder like right under it.
Okay, that's fair.
I will say this is probably the most excited for a Marvel property that I have been in theaters since probably like which came out first, Guardians 2 or Thor Ragnarok, because it's either one of those.
I think Guardians came out first, I think.
So then probably the last one I've been so excited for since Thor Ragnarok, because Endgame didn't do anything for me, Infinity War didn't do anything for
Wow,
me.
that surprises me.
I mean, maybe Spider-Man No Way Home, but Spider-Man No Way Home I really only enjoyed for the spider stuff, and then everything else is just kind of boring. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, my recommendation would, I know I kind of shit on the movie, and I'm like, this is how I would redo all of it. I still really enjoy it. I still would 100% recommend going and seeing it in theaters if you can, if you want to, and obviously reading the.
And if not, Disney Plus will throw it on there in less than a month, because that's what they did with Doctor Strange.
Yeah. I feel like I was really, really excited for Multiverse of Madness, because I think that was one of the biggest Marvel movies that we've had in the last 2-3 years. And it did not I agree. And I think that WandaVision being so high was what got me excited for Multiverse of Madness. And then I was let down with
And then they said, WandaVision? Whoever watched WandaVision?
Yeah.
But that's everything that I got. So now it's time for what everybody's been waiting for. It's what we do here usually. Sometimes we read books and sometimes we talk about them. Sometimes we like them and sometimes we get violent. And I think that considering we have 2 weeks worth, I think it's going to be a nice little combination of everything.
It is. I've got a lot of thoughts about a lot of books.
Thoughts about a lot of books.
Chat, you know the drill. What would you like to see us talk about first?
Just don't say DC Comics, because there's only 2 books.
I mean, or we could just get that out of the way. So we've got DC, we've got Marvel, we've got Indie. I will let y'all know I have 3 DC books from the last 2 weeks. I have about 10 Marvel books from the last 2 weeks and about 20 Indie. So chat, please go ahead and drop a comment. Let us know what you would like us to read first. But before while that's going on, and when we see what people want us to talk about, I want to go ahead and talk about a little book that I picked up. I know that they are in the chat, so I wanted to show. I got this little book of poetry called Political Science by our friend Officially Unofficial Geek, and it is a really great book of poetry. I've read I think 2 of them so far. I'm going to go in and just read from front to back. Sometimes I do it a little bit more chaotically, and I'm like, this poem has an interesting title, or this thing has an interesting hook for me. Let me go ahead and read it. But anyways, I just wanted to show that I got this. So Carrie, if you are in the chat and you feel like you want to drop a link to your book, please go ahead and do so. So if anyone else wants to support one of our viewers, you can go ahead and do so. So there you go. What
I think it's coming in that we need to just get DC out of the way. So we got 2 books. We got 2 books, 2 of which that I would consider like a double feature. So there's one book in particular that you read by the name of...
We're doing DC?
Yeah.
And did I read it and you didn't?
Yes.
There's 2, I think.
Oh, there's 2? I thought there was only 1.
I have 3 books. Okay. So Swamp Thing? Is that what you were? Okay. Okay. So this is the 14th. Is that right? Yeah. 14th. Features Green Lantern. I really don't know too much about Green Lantern. That's one of my blind spots.
Which Green Lantern?
Is it Hal? Is that his name? Definitely not Guy Gardner. Because I just would have been like, I'm skipping this issue. But I feel like this was still a pretty interesting issue, because Swamp Thing is now going after the machinations type things that are coming through. There are just so many, like I wanted to highlight this. There's so many really cool like spreads.
Ooh.
So it's issue 14. I'm not going to get too much into it because obviously we're at 14 of 16. So I've only got 2 more issues left. I'm curious to see how this is going to wrap up. But this in particular reminded me of some of the post Alan Moore Swamp Thing stuff, not necessarily Nancy Collins. Was it Rick Veitch? I forget who did it, but it gets a little bit weird. It gets very introspective, which I really, really appreciated. So not much more to say other than please read Swamp Thing.
Please read Swamp Thing.
Just please read Swamp Thing.
That's to me as well.
And what's his name? Levi is talking to like some of the other like the Parliament, and it's good, y'all. Swamp Thing is so good. I don't know why.
What other book did you have that I didn't have?
That for DC?
Yeah.
Nubia, Queen of the Amazons, number 2.
Oh yeah.
I will say I like this more than I liked. What was the previous iteration of this?
Nubia. Was it just Nubia?
Was it just Nubia? Whatever, like, and so not only is
really, because that one was really, really good.
The I like this more. And I think the reason why is because we're going more into the, I'm going to say the real world, or like the non.
We're off of Themyscira.
Exactly. So I like it. And we also get to see like Hawk Girl show up, and Yara Flor shows up. So I really love these moments, and it's like my gal pal.
Yara Flor shows up?
Yeah. Yep. Look at those baddies.
And I didn't.
It's a genre. Not everybody fits on the Resta.
All right, TikTok, go home. Jen spent too much time on TikTok. I need somebody to confiscate her phone now. Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm sad now.
So it's really good, and I think that's why I like these moments. And like I said, Hawk Girl like shows up, and I think that it's just really fun. I'm sad that this is only 4 issues, but I think it being announced, us knowing it's only 4 issues,
they just need to give Nubia an ongoing at this point. Like, there's no reason for it.
I agree. Like, it could be so much bigger. So anyways, I really, really liked Nubia as well.
Well, there was a 3rd book from DC that came out this week that we both read. A little issue 2 for a book called Poison Ivy. And Jen, of course, being crazy, bought how many covers?
I bought 4 covers of Poison Ivy number 2. So I got the A cover because, of course, can't get the other ones without getting an A cover. I got the Chris Ward variant as well. Like, look at her. She's so beautiful. And then I can't remember the artist. Claire Rowe.
Mm-hmm.
It just reminded me of Poison Ivy Thorn.
Yeah.
And then, of course.
Oh, so gorgeous.
Because, of course, Jenny Frison is just does it.
This is issue 2 of the ongoing. So Poison Ivy is kind of on a rampage, slaughter, rightful slaughter. She's poisoning the world, and because the people have poisoned her world. And at this point, she's kind of good for her. Of course, this is definitely a good for her book. She's gotten to a point where she's like, the world's going to go extinct within 20 or 25 years if somebody doesn't do anything. So why not I do something? And I gotta say, I really I love the idea of a character like Poison Ivy, who for years and years and years and years was a villain. That's all she was a villain. But now that millennials and Gen Z are writing and reading and, getting into the character, they're like, there's nothing villain about that. There's nothing villainy about wanting to save the world and caring about the ecosystem and caring about, climate change and things like that. So I think it's just really funny that, Poison Ivy is like that one instance you know, because I've said it before multiple times, I'm sick and tired of this kind of trend that we're seeing where a lot of villains are being transformed into heroes. But I feel like in this case, Poison Ivy never was actually a villain. We're just finally realizing that now, which I think is funny.
I agree. And I think that the reason why I connect with it so much is, I mean, I could like do a whole ass rant about it, but especially how society makes villains specifically of queer people and marginalized people. And
Yeah.
it's like, who is the villain here? Is someone the villain because they think that they are entitled to villainy, or are they a villain because they've been marginalized by society? And the villains that I connect with are the ones where I'm like, that person is a villain because society has made them a villain, not necessarily they. Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
Am I onto something here? So yeah.
But I really like this issue. So this issue, we kind of get to see a little bit more. We're introduced to a new character that I'm sure is going to play way more into it later on, and I'm curious to see where that goes, especially because there's kind of a queer vibe going on right now. We get
Yeah.
to see more of Pamela Isley's thoughts and the way that she feels about Harley, and anytime we get depiction of that, you know, because Pamela Isley is a character I've never really related to and I've never really cared for, but seeing her, and she's always kind of came off as sort of this like cold-hearted, I don't care about any people, I only care about the green. But the idea that there is very few select people that she cares about, and we get to see these tender moments and the way that she feels about them, I really, really like that, especially when they are queer. We also get to see some inside look with her and the gardener, which I'm interested to see more of. I know that you were a huge fan of the Gardener one shot and that it said that there was a lot of queerness in that. So I'm excited to see more in that. And overall, I just think that this book, it's really fun. I did not expect to love this book as much as I did. Because again, I don't really have a connection to this character, but it's up there with books like Nightwing and Son of Kal-El right now.
I agree. And I was very, very interested when I saw that G. Willow Wilson was writing Poison Ivy, but I was like, I'm not necessarily sure how that will really play out. And so I've been surprised. And because this book is like the voice of it is Poison Ivy, and you get to see it's like her journaling. So like a big part of the book, you're reading her journaling, her thoughts, what she's going through. And so I appreciate getting it from Pam's perspective. And in this book, she's basically been going on a cross-country road trip to infect with the lamia. So these spores she's infecting things with, and she has control over them, so like she can have them sprout. So she infects people, waits, leaves, has them sprout. And so there's tense moments in this book where she's like, do I need to do it now? Do I need to wait? Do I need to escape? And so I like that. And there is this moment with this woman that she meets, and I'm like, I want them to kiss, but I also don't, because I know that if they do, it's going to hurt Harley even more. And so I just, this is a really great book. I feel like I say this every week, but this feels like it is a condensed book, but there is no one of whatever. So I'm pretty sure it's going to be an ongoing.
Hopefully, fingers crossed, and hopefully, fingers crossed, it leads into a Gotham City Sirens, because at this point, you know, with characters running around like Miracle Molly, Punchline, and the Gardener, there's no reason for us not to get a modern iteration of Gotham City Sirens with some of these characters, or even some of these characters working as an antagonist, because I could easily see a Gotham City Sirens book with our main trio, maybe including the Gardener and Miracle Molly, and maybe Punchline being the antagonist. There's no excuse for it at this point, DC. Let it happen.
Yeah, and I
make
agree.
It gay.
Make it gay, and I agree here with Carrie. I would love to see more Gardner in general, and I know I like every time it's mentioned. Please, please, please read, what is it, Secret Files, The Gardener. The artwork is done by Chris Ward, and it's fantastic. It's beautiful. It's so well written. So yeah, please check it out. So that was DC, literally 2 weeks, and we only got 3 books. I know the big book this week was Detective Comics 125, written by Chip Zdarsky, and oops, I didn't get it.
No.
Sorry.
No Batman here.
Is there anyone in the chat who was like, I got it, it was good? But do you want to go to Marvel? Do you want to go to indie?
I think we should just jump over to Marvel because it feels like it was a very indie heavy week. There was a lot of, or indie heavy 2 weeks. There was a lot of new #1, so I think that that's going to take up a lot of time.
It is.
So let's jump over to Marvel because I only have 2 books for Marvel. 3. I have 3 books for Marvel. I have 3. Yeah, you always have way more than I do.
That's okay.
You always have way more than I do. It's fine.
And there's not even very many variant covers. And I will be honest, there's maybe 2 or 3 Marvel books that I just didn't read over the last couple of weeks. So this might be a little bit quicker for Marvel, and then we'll get into indie. What was one of the books that you got?
One of the books I got that I know you didn't get was Obi-Wan Kenobi #2. I was really harsh and really critical about issue 1, and I was hoping that, because issue 1, it starts us off with old Ben Kenobi on Tatooine, hunkered down in the middle of a sandstorm, writing out his deepest, darkest thoughts and journaling, his thoughts and feelings. Issue 1 kind of went into his youth at the Jedi Temple and questioning whether or not he wanted to be a Jedi, and I had no interest in that. But then issue 2 promised that we would get to see a little adventure with him and his old master, Qui-Gon Jinn. And I'm like, listen, I'm a sucker. I'm that type of person where the more things that I know that you're going to pump into something, I know there's a lot of complaints where it's like, just stop shoving stuff in because it's nostalgic or whatever. I'm like, no, please pump more in because it's nostalgic and because I'm going to do the little Leonardo DiCaprio and point and get really excited. But this issue was just really, really boring. And at this point, I'm questioning why this series exists. And it's making me really, really frustrated and mad because I know Star Wars comics can be good. I mean, we have a book called Darth Vader, which is probably one of the best Star Wars comics, if not just one of the best additions to the Star Wars universe, period. And then you have what feels like we only put out an Obi-Wan Kenobi miniseries because he had a show on Disney Plus and we need something to tie it in. And I'm like, no, thank you. So I don't want to pick up issue 3. But issue 3 also promises me clone interaction, and I'm a sucker for the clone. I know I'm talking gibberish to you at this point, but Clone Wars interaction, and I'm like, maybe I'll read 1 more, but then I'm like, it's only 5 issues, so if I'm reading to 3, shouldn't I just read to all 5? And it's like, can I just get good Star Wars comics? Can I get Ahsoka comics? Can I get Clone Wars comics? I'm sick and tired of being stuck in this era of Star Wars when there are so many eras of Star Wars. Why can't we have a little prequel as a treat or a little sequel as a treat? I don't like the sequels, but I don't know.
You know me, very limited Star Wars.
Who are all these people she's talking about?
I know the people that you're talking about, but I don't know their stories. When Ahsoka shows up, I think I messaged you and I'm like, wait, is Ahsoka so-and-so's daughter? And you're like, well, no, not really. And so you explained it for me. So I appreciate that a lot. But so right now there's the High Republic, which is kind of the beginning of Star Wars, if I'm correct.
It's 400 years or 200 years before the first movies even start. So it's nothing that other than Yoda jumping around because Yoda's eternal and whatever.
And I liked the High Republic, the first volume or 2 that came out. That when I was keeping up with it, I enjoyed that. It was fun because it was high fantasy science fiction, which is
and it's new. It's great for somebody like you who doesn't really know Star Wars. So it's kind of bringing you into the world of Star Wars without expecting you to have any prior knowledge. But then it's also good for long-term fans. Now, personally, I didn't like it because I don't like the Jedi and I think they're a bunch of bitches. But it was, great reception from a lot of Star Wars fan because it was new and it was something that they hadn't seen before but could still familiarize themselves with it. So it's just hard because it's like, and I see Carrie's kind of dropped something in the chat. It's hard because it feels like when you contain yourself to certain timelines and certain eras, which unfortunately Marvel does. When Star Wars comics first came out, everything was constrained between A New Hope and Empire. Now, because it's the anniversary of Empire Strikes Back, everything is constrained right now between, aside from, Obi-Wan and a couple things here and there, but a lot of books right now are constrained between the timeline between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. And I've got a feeling, cough, cough, wink, wink, that with the anniversary of Return of the Jedi coming up, Star Wars is going to, end all of their books and then do it again where everything's set between Return of the Jedi and the sequels. And it's just frustrating because you've got so much to work with. And like I said, I know I keep pounding in Clone Wars, but Clone Wars has so little representation in the comics.
Other than just the animated series, I started trying to watch that and it feels so self-contained.
Well, so we have Clone Wars comics, but they were all done. I believe that at the time they were still being done by Dark Horse. The Clone Wars era really has not been touched since Marvel has bought the license. And it's like, there's no reason for it. Just do it. Listen, I'm telling you right now, Marvel, if you put out an Ahsoka comic or even a Clone Wars comic, but you just got Ahsoka on the cover and you give me 12 different covers the way you did with Star Wars #1, I promise. Now, my partner needs to close his ears because I don't even hear this, but I promise I will buy all 12 fucking covers at $4.99 a piece or whatever the hell you're going to price them at, $5.99 at this point.
Get Peach Momoko doing it, yeah.
Get Peach Momoko to do it, man. It'll be all fun. We'll have a good time. Get an action figure variant in there. Get a Scotty Young variant in there. That's 3 already, plus your main cover. Then, you always got to have a Star Wars cover by Phil Noto.
Mm-hmm.
Like, listen, I'm giving you money at this point. It's fine.
Well, speaking of which, I don't know, necessarily where this falls in, but on the topic of Star Wars comics, I did end up getting, of course, Dr. Aphra,
of course,
because I want to see Rey. Yeah, 100%. I want to see that because Rey was one of my favorite parts of that. Anyways, but this is issue 21 of Dr. Aphra, and I feel like, I don't know if it's this whole Crimson Reign thing that's going on. And maybe it's because it feels like it's been a while since I've read.
Well, that's the other problem we're seeing with Marvel too, in terms of the Star Wars comics, and it's why I stopped reading Darth Vader. Is now we're bringing all these events into the Star Wars comics and tying them all together and forcing people to read 5 or 6 books that they might not be normally. It's just frustrating. Don't do that.
Give me a Jabba the Hutt slug butt comic. Make that canon.
Jabba one shot.
Jabba, give me something like that. Now, speaking, also a great segue, a little book called The Mandalorian comes out this upcoming week.
Which pre-ordered. I'm really excited for.
I pre-ordered 2 or 3 different copies and variant covers because Rodney Barnes. Rodney Barnes I trust Rodney Barnes a lot.
So help me God. I haven't seen any of the preview pages.
Yeah.
But if that artwork is not the sexiest artwork we have not seen, if I don't get Din Djarin and nothing but his helmet and just sweat glistening off of his chiseled Pedro Pascal abs, we're going to have some fighting words.
Okay. So that's the real, we need to see the female gaze represented.
The female gaze representation. Listen, Rodney Barnes, you're a fan of this show. We've done shows with you in the past. I like to consider ourselves casual pals. Do this for me. You just got to write it into a script, just a little footnote. Din Djarin, shirtless, sweat glistening abs, Baby Yoda hands him a towel. Simple, it writes itself. I don't know. You don't have to put Baby Yoda in there. The Baby Yoda part was a little weird, but hear me out. It'll all work out.
I'm still excited for it. I think even if the Mandalorian show, it did pretty well. I feel like that's been one of the best.
It is the best one. Listen,
or at least the most. I didn't watch season 2, but anyways, sorry.
You heard me. It's fine.
Sorry. Well, What are there? I've got a couple other Marvel books here that I read.
I have 2 other Marvel books that I read, and I think that you read. I know you read at least one of them.
Okay, I'm gonna get into some of these that I read that maybe you didn't, and maybe just like quick review them.
Mm-hmm.
If you read them, please shout it out. Mech Strike, Monstrous.
Oh, I didn't even know that came out. I knew that they were doing it, but I did not know it came out.
I have no clue what's going on, and sometimes that makes me enjoy a book. This book was definitely sometimes a genre. Like, if you're like, this book was meant for a 12-year-old boy, I'm like, duh, that should be the comic that I'm
It's like
reading.
Jurassic League.
Sounds super fun. That should be what I'm reading. This book was not for me. I think it could be great. I think this could literally be like some kid's first book that they pick up and they're like, this is the best. Wasn't for me. I didn't like it, but I know that it's a good book for someone. So I do want to say that. I did pick this one up. I didn't read it though, but I feel like I need to. She-Hulk #4. I actually didn't. Did you read this one?
I did read it. I've got some feelings on it. So She-Hulk has had a extremely unreliable release schedule. And I feel like a lot of my qualms about this book are from its unreliable release schedule. So it has been 2 months since we've gotten a new She-Hulk, and then the month before that, it was another 2 months. We're only on issue 4, and this book came out in February. What is going on? There's no excuse for this at all, especially when you guys said that you extended the series. Not only that, but we're getting another issue supposedly in another 2 weeks.
Okay.
And it's just really messy because the story is not hard to follow, but when you take a 2-month break, it becomes hard to follow. So I really want to enjoy this book. I love the interactions with She-Hulk and some of the other heroes. There's a scene where, she's of course practicing law, as She-Hulk does. She's practicing law, and she walks into her office, and you just see all of these heroes that are waiting to be represented. You see Moon Knight and Nightcrawler and Sam Wilson and Spider-Woman, and I like that. I think it's really fun, and I really, really like shit like that. And I want more of that. Like, I want just a whole series of, like, anthology series of just She-Hulk representing different heroes in court.
What if we got, like, a She-Hulk black, white, and green?
Do it. Hear me out. Do it. I think it'd be really fun. But I don't understand this release schedule. There was no announcements on this release schedule, and I thought that it might have silently gotten canceled.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Part of me, while I was reading this, because Titania shows up at the beginning of this issue, and I'm going to be honest, I don't remember if Titania showed up in issue 3. It almost feels like they're prolonging this series to catch up with the She-Hulk show instead of just waiting to release the series closer to the show. And then it makes me question, are they throwing in related characters right now to coincide with the TV show? And it just feels really messy. And it makes me sad because I think once it's compiled, I think we have a decent She-Hulk series. I don't think anything. Listen, Charles Soule wrote the best She-Hulk series. Y'all can fight me any day of the week. But why is there a 2-month gap on a Marvel book? I understand indie books. There's no reason for it on a Marvel book.
I think you're right. I think your theory that they are trying to, like, if they go ahead and release all of these, and then you can have maybe more of like a compendium or like a trade paperback for all of them.
I don't know.
That might be.
I don't know. Am I going to continue to buy She-Hulk and multiple covers of She-Hulk? Yes, because I'm a gay lady who is in love with a big green gay lady. It's fine. But I need to know what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
Because I don't understand what's happening with the story now because I don't remember.
I agree. I think that when it's all compiled, it's going to be an easier read.
It'll be an easier read.
Yeah. And for those that are asking, She-Hulk isn't like still coming out. It's that like there was a series and it stopped, and then it's like it picked up again.
So the first issue came out at the end of February.
But it's before then, before February.
We hadn't had a She-Hulk series since Mariko Tamaki.
Yeah.
Mariko Tamaki was writing it. And at that point, it was just called Hulk. And then we had Charles Soule beforehand writing She-Hulk, and Dan Slott before that. So it's a perfect time for a She-Hulk series. She got a little show coming out. She needs mainstream audience to latch onto her. But I don't know. It's just annoying.
Yeah. Really quick, I want to address this comment really quick. Promiscuous time traveler. I do think that this will eventually be where the industry goes.
That is such a can of worms to open. Every time somebody poses this question, because I feel like that on a regular basis. Every time I think about this question, I get a fucking anxiety attack because I'm like, listen,
sorry, I'll take it down.
I personally, I like reading things in trade. I don't like single issues. I like reading things in trade. But then I got to play devil advocate because I collect covers and I like variant covers and I spend an obscene amount of dumb bitch money on variant covers. Mm-hmm. Not only that, but the more important thing is comic shops thrive on single issues, not necessarily on collected editions. So I'm like, what does that mean for the future of comic shops? And it's just a huge industry question that we definitely need to talk about, but nobody has a solution to yet.
And especially because, from what I understand, sometimes not all contracts are the same. So you may hear it vary from publisher to publisher and from creator to creator. But especially when it comes to independent comic books, indie creators a lot of times get more money, a higher percentage of money from single issue sales than they do royalties from a collected edition. Yeah. So even though I do think that this is where the industry is ultimately going, I do also think that you can go to Barnes & Noble and you can go to Amazon, you can go to all these bigger publishers and you can get collected. But where can you get single issues? And that's comic book shops. And if comic book shops don't exist, I don't exist. If I don't have an actual physical comic book shop to go to and get some fucking waffles every Wednesday,
what's the point?
What's the point of living? Yeah. So anyways, thank you for hearing.
That was a loaded gun question.
I probably should, that could be literally a whole series talking about that, but I agree. I think it's the way the industry is going, but I also think that single issues, I like single issues, but anyways. Okay.
What else did you read from Marvel?
Okay, really quick. I have been begrudgingly reading this series, and
don't Alien. If it's Alien, I swear to God.
No, it's excellent. I really like Peter Milligan. I really like Michael Allred and Laura Allred. I don't love this. And it's maybe because they are, and I feel like I should love it because it's C characters, but I feel like I'm so unfamiliar with the characters in Excellent. But that's just X-Men, is that they should all be just C-list characters. But anyways, this book is a little bit too weird for me, and I don't know if I love it.
I never thought that I would hear that come out of your mouth. It was too weird for me. Because you have read some weird shit.
I love weird shit. Is literally, it's I walk into the comic book shop and I'm like, what weird shit came out that I don't already know about? Cool, just add it to my list. This book, so another book that we didn't even talk about when we were talking about the movie, but there is a Jane Foster and the Mighty Thor book being written by what's his name, and I feel like Groenbeck.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even. I don't love this, even though
that first issue was awful.
It was not good. I tried to read the second issue. It was also just not good. I have no clue what's going on. I don't feel like the book knows what it wants to be. But I do love the Peach Momoko covers, so maybe I'll just keep buying this silly little Peach Momoko covers and
do a little Peach Momoko as a little treat.
As a treat. Issue 5 of Sabretooth came out, and
You're reading Sabretooth?
I am. I love it. It's written by Victor LaValle, who did let me think, The Ballad of Black Tom, which is a novel, and
Victor LaValle's Frankenstein?
Destroyer, which
Or
is
Destroyer.
like, and also Eve. So I love his work a lot. It's really interesting to see. This is one of those characters where I'm like, did society make this character a villain? Why am I reading a Sabretooth comic? But also, if I can convince you to read this just for like more Mystique and Destiny moments.
Oh, damn, you got me.
Just saying, I got him. So this is actually, I've been really liking it. I think some of the X-Men adjacent books are better than the X-Men books. I'm not talking about Excellent because I don't like that one, but Sabretooth is great. Anyways, one of the other books that I swear to God had no right being as good as it was is Captain America's Symbol of Truth. It is Sam Wilson and Wade Wilson, and that team up is delicious. There are so many great moments between these two. I love it. Why am I liking this
Those
book?
unexpected team ups are always the best.
So they're like, of course, going across America, trying to figure stuff out, trying to find the like who's selling super soldier serum. So anyways, this book really makes me like Deadpool, but I think it's because the contrast of Sam Wilson. So, I've got it. Let me think. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, 1, 2, 3 more books. What do you have?
There's only one that we shared.
Okay. So then. Oh, no, I'm confused. Okay. Iron Man and Hellcat.
This is such a weird. Listen, I didn't even know that these characters were together, and then it was announced that they were getting married.
Yeah.
And I know I don't have the biggest knowledge of Hellcat, but what the hell?
Yeah. I tried to read it.
That relationship makes absolute zero sense whatsoever.
None. I didn't understand this book at all, but I did buy it for the variant cover. So, but I will say, Iron Cat was so good, and I don't know if it's been like confirmed, or it has been confirmed now, but I don't know if it was confirmed before this. Our girl is gay.
Yeah, she's always been bisexual.
Oh. Like maybe I knew that she was bisexual, but I thought it had never been confirmed.
Felicity Hardy has always been the bisexual queen.
Okay, well, this book was great. I really, really enjoyed it.
I think that means it was code word for gay.
Yeah, it was very gay, and I really liked it. I had a gay old time with it. It goes into her past. It goes into a little bit of her training, and the relationship that she has with this character. I don't really know who Iron Cat really is, but I really liked it. So Black Cat and Iron Cat, like, it was good.
It was good.
Okay, that was me blowing through all my Marvel. I've got one last book now.
It's the same book? Yeah.
What are your thoughts? Because I just ranted about 20 different books. Please rant about one.
Listen, it has been so fucking long since I've gotten to read Gail Simone, like new Gail Simone, because Gail Simone's been doing a lot of behind the scenes stuff at Lion Forge and at other publishers, and I'm like, my dude, just please write a comic book again. Please, I'm begging you. And her jumping onto a character like Jessica Jones was like, all right, I like this. So I have a lot of thoughts about Jessica Jones, because Jessica Jones ended up being one of my favorite comic book characters, you know, with the whole Netflix series. I became obsessed with her. I loved her. Went back and read Alias and was like, I hate Jessica Jones. And then
that surprises me, because I feel like there's so many. When I was watching the Jessica Jones show, it felt like they took so much of who she is from the OG Brian Michael Bendis.
I was like, I hate Jessica Jones, and this is boring and wordy. And then we got the new Jessica Jones series post the Netflix series, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna pick it up. But it was the same creative team, and I'm like, this is boring and stupid, and I hate it. But I still love Jessica Jones. And then we got Kelly Thompson on Jessica Jones, and I'm like, all right, this is what I've been waiting for. So I feel like Jessica Jones, outside of Brian Michael Bendis, I really enjoy. and the same goes for Gail Simone. So I really like this book is weird. This book
It
is
kind of is.
really, really weird. This is like when you talk about characters with multiple, because we're seeing it happen a lot. We're seeing, Miles Morales, What If? We're seeing the Gwenverse right now. We've seen characters like Gwenpool. Jessica Jones is not a character I would expect to hop through the multiverse and have multiple variants, especially because she's very cut and dry with who she is. But Gail Simone coming in with the weirdness, but yet still making it familiar. So there's a lot of this book kind of focuses around Kilgrave, which is
Yeah.
kind of a
Like,
big deal because in the comics for years they only called him as the Purple Man, and now we're shifting. And sometimes I like when comics adapt to a show or a movie in a good way.
yeah.
So it feels like, it's same with Kelly Thompson when she wrote Jessica Jones, and now again with the variants by Gail Simone, you know, we're seeing that familiarity that we saw with the Netflix show. So I think that people that really, really liked that show are going to really, really like this comic and not feel overwhelmed by it, because this is a book that could get very, very overwhelming. There's a lot of shit going on in this book, but we get to see familiar characters like Matt Murdock, and mentions of Kilgrave. So I think if you're just a fan of the character, I think picking it up. I think my only complaint is, I guess it does say Jessica Jones down in the corner, but I think the title of the variants is a little weird.
Yeah.
I think if this book was called Jessica Jones, variants,
Yeah.
I think it would be a lot more sellable to the mainstream audience, because I'm thinking in a couple months when this goes on to a bookshelf in a bookstore and you just see the variants, not a lot of people are going to pick that out. But if it was labeled as Jessica Jones, more people would pick it out.
I agree. I think that this is going to be easily accessible. It's smart without making the reader feel dumb, and it's smart about the character without, like, it gives you a little bit of like pieces of who the character is. Like, so if you watched the Jessica Jones show, or even if you didn't, and like, okay, Jessica Jones, who is she as a character? She's an investigator. And she's incredibly strong, but she had this moment with the Purple Man who controlled her to do things to other people. And so with this, you see those moments and it's like it clicks and it's familiar, but it's not like you feel like you need to go read 100 issues to be like, wait, when did that happen? How did that happen? Why? My only complaint about this book is that the premise of it is that we knew that there was going to be Jessica Jones meeting other versions of herself from other universes to solve some type of mystery. That was the first issue. So at the end of it, it was like that was the reveal.
Yeah.
That was the
there was no cliff to kind of keep you reading to the next one.
Exactly.
If we had just been told, hey, this is a new Jessica Jones story, and then we had gotten that reveal at the end, I agree. I think it definitely would have been a lot more impactful.
I wish that it like pushed, because like the description that we were given before reading the book is the cliffhanger. So we're literally like at the beginning of the book, we know what the cliffhanger is. So I wish that there was just another cliff. Anyways, it's still a really great book. Phil Noto?
I fucking love Phil Noto on art. Listen,
incredible.
Phil Noto on art is my favorite.
Dreamy. And I think that this book gets so introspective about the character, like who Jessica Jones is, and Jessica Jones is having this conversation of who am I? So it's really interesting that she's having this conversation of who she is when she is going to be meeting other versions of herself. So there's a moment where she is about to go to a wedding. She's like, I'm going to go pick out some lipstick to wear. So you see her like trying on these lipsticks, and it's a great introspective moment. I really enjoyed this. You should pick it up. Gail Simone. You're awesome.
Really loved it.
Okay. That's it that I have for Marvel. Did you have any other Marvel books?
No, I just have all. It was a big week for indie. Like huge. I don't even know where to start.
Well, do we want to go by publisher? Do we want to? So I got a lot of.
I think just jumping around because there's so much going on right now. It's ridiculous.
Chat, I want to know, what was your favorite indie book from the last couple weeks, if you read any of those. Because I had a lot. I'll go ahead and really quickly breeze through some of the ones that I know that I got that I don't think you did.
Okay.
If that's okay.
That's fine.
Maybe jump out and tell me. Okay. Mezzo, number 3. This is done by A Wave Blue World. I fucking love this book, and I don't feel like it is as well. I don't think it gets the publicity that it needs, so that's why I'm screaming that I like it so much. If you like Daniel Warren Johnson, I feel like you would like this book, if for nothing other than like the art style. And I just really love the characters and stuff that's happening. I didn't read the first volume, and then this is apparently the second volume, so go ahead and you can just jump right into Mezzo Battle at Castle Rock. Once in Future 27. I'm still reading this book, even though I've been saying for the last like 20 issues that I'm like, I'm tired of this book. Sorry. Why? Dead Box, number 3, came out a freaking year after issue 2. It feels like 6 months, a year.
It's been a while.
However, it's Mark Russell, and this book, when I read the first 2 issues, I was like, what the fuck is even going on? And I felt that during this one, and I'm slowly getting it. There's this person who works at a video rental store, begrudgingly to like, pay the bills. But someone comes in and like rents a movie for the kids. The movie that they rent is called Guns, and it's basically cars, but guns. And
I kind of love that. Also, to put it in perspective, the last issue came out in October.
So this issue 2 came out in October, and issue 1 came out so it's been almost a year.
Issue 1 came out September. It looks like there was only a month of release between issues 1 and 2, and now like 8 months between issue 2 and 3?
Yeah. So this issue 3, I was able to jump into issue 3 after not knowing what was going on in issues 1 and 2, and after 8 months of not reading it, and still actually enjoying it more than I liked issues 1 and 2. So I'm definitely, hopefully it's not another year before issue 4 comes out, but I do like Dead Box. And I definitely want to read this in trade as well. Did you happen to get Astronaut Down?
I did not.
Okay. This came out the same week as like the Aquaman issue 1 of this came out. Andromeda, thank you. Issue 2 is kind of weird of this book because there's like astronauts that end up going into different dimensions because something is going on with the world. So it gets really horror-y and kind of like not necessarily cosmic, but multiverse, but not in like the Marvel way. It's kind of fun. That being said, I don't know if I'm going to pick up issue 3. I may wait to read the trade. Philadelphia, number 23. This is such a good series. I love the political intrigue that's going on. Like, not only is it political in the way that it features like American political stuff, but it's just like the politics of what's going on. So I love Philadelphia. Dark Beach, number 4. It's been a while since I read issue 3, so issue 4 was like, I don't remember what's going on. I will probably pick up the last issue, number 5, and then just not read it and then get the trade. Okay. I've talked a lot. Do you have any books that you read?
Maybe there's a lot of books that I read. A lot of books. I'm gonna go straight for number 1 because I really want to talk about it because I'm having kind of a mind fuck right now about it. Okay. And that's a book called Absolution from AWA Upshot. This is a new series. I believe this one was also done by Peter Milligan.
Yeah.
And Mike Deodato. This book was weird for a lot of reasons, and there's one in particular that I'll talk about because I just need to rant about it because I had an epiphany finally.
You texted me this morning and you were like, "Did you read this?" Because
I had a conversation with myself. Like, I'm literally sitting at my desk reading it, talking to myself, trying to talk my way through it, trying to make sense of it, and it was just a mess. So, Absolution is basically like this punk rock chick looking motherfucker who is an ex-assassin. Now she's trying to do good and is trying to like make good with the government. So they've implanted a chip in her to kill the people that they only want her to kill.
It feels
Not
very
only
Suicide Squad, but like
feels very Suicide Squad, but then you also get this really weird live stream aspect into it. Like, she's got these fucking cameras in her eyeballs, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? So I just gotta say, whenever there is any sort of aspect of live streaming in a comic book, because we've also seen it in Booster Gold, Blue and Gold, or Booster Gold and Blue Beetle, Blue and Gold. This gave me fucking PTSD flashback. Because when writers try to write live stream feeds or comment sections, it always comes off as very fucking cringy.
it
And the
does.
reason for that is because these fucking comment sections are cringy as shit. So I tend to avoid those.
Not the people who are in our chat
Not the
currently.
people in Casually Comics, but in other places,
Don't wanna
they can be
bless
a
it.
little they can be a little cringy, and I don't need to see that in my comic book. So I'm trying to avoid the cringy places of the internet. So when it shows up in my comic book, I'm a little fucking freaked out. So the book was very average. It felt like something very fucking 90s to me, with like the slap of Twitch streaming right over it.
Mhm.
What fucking not ruined this, I guess ruined it, but what fucking kind of made me go insane this morning? AWA is known for pumping out what the comic community has deemed as made for TV, made for movie properties.
They like cast they do like a wish list of like who they want.
So that's what fucking blew my mind, because I know people talk about it all the time. And I've read series like Hit Me, which we'll talk about, series like Not All Robots, series like Hotel, and all of these series have
The
had
Fourth
very
Man.
well, I haven't read The Fourth Man, but the 3 series that I just listed that I have read or I'm currently reading are all very generic looking characters. And I don't say that as an insult. I say that as anybody could be cast to play them if it got adapted. Yeah. Absolution is the first time where I looked at a fucking character and I was like, that's Woody fucking Harrison. That's Mila fucking Jovovich. And it started giving me like Uncanny Valley vibes. And I started feeling really, really uncomfortable, because the whole time I'm reading it, once I realized it, I'm like, this is Mila Jovovich. And I couldn't fucking unsee it. And then I started reading it in her voice. And I'm like, I don't like this. Because here's the thing.
Wow.
I like, as a comic book reader, as a prose reader, being given a description of a character. With comics, it's a little harder because you're given somebody, as a drawing. But being able to perceive who I want as this character. I could even go so far as to look at a book like Berserker, which we all know was made for Keanu Reeves. When you look at Berserker outside of its covers, because all the covers look like Keanu Reeves, but when you look at the actual book, it just looks like a generic white man that kind of looks like Keanu Reeves, but I don't see the uncanny. I can't see fucking Keanu Reeves' goddamn cheekbones. In Absolution, I can see Mila Jovovich's fucking cheekbones, and it's bothering me.
Now that you said,
I hate it.
I thought it was. Is it Mia Jovovich? Maybe I'm
the girl from Resident Evil. I don't know. I'm terrible with names.
Now I 100% see that.
See it now?
I do, and maybe I need to go back and read it. I liked this book I did enjoy this for
Uncanny
at least
Valley.
For the premise. However, the artwork, Mike Diodato, this felt so busy. Like there's panels
so
like
busy.
this where like I don't know if you can see, there's one panel that gets broken up. Like that happens a lot where a panel will just be broken up for, in my opinion, no reason. Sometimes it gets done creatively. This didn't feel that way. There is a book that I read several years ago called Something Violence in Fancy Suits, and it's about a girl who ends up She's really poor. She finds out that her dad was like the richest person on earth, like a billionaire a million times over. She ends up inheriting everything that he has, and he lived in this place called Tabula Rasa, right? Where anyways, a whole bunch of hit people end up going after her. That book was fantastic, and I got moments of this in here because of that live streaming. So like live streamer hit people, mercenaries are after her, so they're live streaming trying to kill her.
Yeah.
So it's actually kind of fun. So I got moments of that, but you're right. Whenever writers do that thing where it's like, oh, we're going to do a live stream, it never feels like
authentic. And I think the reason maybe it's that it doesn't feel authentic. Maybe it's the fact that it feels too authentic.
Oh.
And I'm trying to like avoid that authenticity because I know it's fucking cringy.
Yeah.
But yeah, the uncanny valley in Absolution, that's what kind of does it in for me. At this point, I don't even want to read issue 2. Like I have panels put up on my screen here, like press panels. And fucking Mia Jovovich is just fucking staring at me, and I'm feeling very uncomfortable, and I would like for her to leave.
Yeah, now that you say that, I 100%.
It's so bad.
Yep. One of the any other books that you got?
There was another book we could talk about from AWA that came out this week or last week. I think it was last week. Hit Me number 4. I've never had a comic book make me vomit before.
What?
I've never had a comic make me vomit.
Was it because of there's some scenes in the latter half of this book?
No, in the first half of this book.
The
first half of this book. So Hit Me, if you haven't been reading, it's actually a really great book. It's been one of my favorite ongoings right now, where she is essentially a
she's a masochist, so she loves I would say that she enjoys pain. She indulges in pain. She indulges in pain for pay.
Yes.
So she is a professional sub.
I wouldn't even call it a sub, because there are times when she's not. I wouldn't call it a sub. There's something different there. There's a word I'm looking for and I can't think of it, but it is in the kink community. I don't know. It's lost on me. But either way, she's kind of caught in this, stolen diamond type heist. But I like the fact that we're getting it from the perspective and the adventure of a sex worker, because we don't get to see that a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
My problem, I don't know how I'm going to say it without vomiting again on command. So there's a majority of this book in this particular issue 4, where she is suspended and speaking to another person of the kink community, another kink professional, if you will, sadomasochist professional. Thank you, Vanek. Appreciate you. I knew there was something I was looking for that wasn't quite clicking, but there it is. So she's conversing with another individual from the kink community to kind of figure out what's going on with this, heist mission, runaway diamond thing. But she is suspended by needles in her skin, in the air, by hooks. And that's fine. That's a kink thing. I get it. I'm just thinking about it right now, and already I can feel it, and it hurts, and I don't like it. And I'm gonna be honest, I did not read the first 3 pages because I read this book digitally, and I was trying to scroll through to get to points where I could just see text bubbles and not see images, and I was missing out on a lot.
Yes,
So I only read about a quarter of this book. That being said, I still like this book. I just could have used a bit of a trigger warning.
Yeah.
Because I've never had something in comics that has made me have a reaction the way that this did. I've never had a comic make me physically crawl out of my skin. I've read a lot of fucked up shit. I've seen a lot of fucked up shit. But this is the way that I experience movies and TV show, where I have to look away, but you can't look away from something when you're trying to read it.
Because you can't hear this book. You can't
I can't hear the book.
Yeah. I I love this book a lot.
It's so good.
I think that it's incredibly interesting to, because it doesn't, it feels like Krista Faust, who's the writer, did her research with this book and researched kinks, how, and the kink community.
And I think
And
Krista Faust, I think I remember either hearing or reading something that she is also part of the kink community in some sort of fashion.
okay. However, there is, I feel like there are moments in this. So you're right. The main character, and I can't even think of her name, does go to this other person. Um, they've previously had a relationship with them, and there's moments where I'm like, okay, I think that you did a lot of this right, but there's moments where I think that it got it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And
where
I feel like we felt like this throughout the majority of the series too, where it hits it in a lot of places, but then there's a lot of places that could have used some further editing, maybe.
yeah, and I don't want to necessarily relate it to books like 50 Shades of Grey, where it uses the kink community as like a um, cosplay of the kink community. But that's how there's moments that feels like that, where it's like, so one of the biggest things is like they have a play session in here, but there's no, one of the immediate things afterwards is that there is no safe space. There is no decompression.
Mm-hmm.
There's no aftercare given. But
No
then
safe
it,
word, no
no,
nothing.
well, yeah, yes, but there's there's a reason for those things. But anyways, I feel like I love this book. There are things that I could pick apart about it, but it's still been an intriguing story, and there's one issue left. I really hope that, like, I would almost say if you liked safe sex and you wanted it to be a little bit kinkier, go with this.
Yeah.
It's been good.
Because SFSX was more political in the sense
Yeah.
of kinks and the idea of it and where things could go wrong should things like that be outlawed, whereas this is more so embracing
Hmm.
the kink community. Because in SFSX we only get it for a couple pages before it's then, the resistance, so to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, that issue 4 was a lot. It was, listen, there's not a lot of things that surprise me in comics, but that did it.
Yeah. I can see that. Like but at the same time, it's like you do see like people getting like the main character is a character who literally gets the shit beat out of her for money, and she just kind of like walks away from it. It's like, okay, I'm here to indulge in your fantasy, like that's what you're paying me for.
Yeah.
But I agree, it did need like a body. I don't know. One of the things that I are like that's a trigger for me is needles and eyeballs.
Ooh,
I can't watch that. I can't see
yeah,
it.
I'm not good with body
So
mutilation.
yeah. Um, that being said, I know that I have. How many more books do you have?
A lot.
Okay. What are some other books that you got?
Other books that I
Did,
got.
did you get? Did you get this one?
I did. I have a lot of feelings on them. So, all right. So, I went on a rant on Twitter a couple days ago. So Josue, who's not here and is usually here, Josue was like, "Hey, because he saw me complaining about it, and my biggest complaint right now is like kind of dial back. Little Monsters, Jeff Lemire, Dustin Wynn, is a story about little vampires, and they're contained to
Children.
this children vampires, and I think that's a really cool fucking concept. I really, really like this book. Something about is this 4 or 5?
5.
Issue 5, so there's one more left. Something about issue 5 kind of clicked with me and a lot of my problems that I'm having with the book and what I want from the book. So this book is about, there's a group of like 5 or 6 children that are kind of left in the middle of nowhere and are told, hey, you have to wait here. They're in this abandoned city. They've been left there for hundreds of years, and they're kind of starting to learn about the world because humans are starting to come in, and, they have to do this and that and figure out, life things. People are dying. They have to process these emotions. It's a lot. Problem is, you have this group of characters contained into this small limited series, And I'm not allowed to have time to get to know these characters, get to know their feelings, their desires, their emotions, their relationships with one another. And yet, when you go and you kill characters, which we saw happen in the previous issue, I'm supposed to have a reaction. And I can't. And it's hard for me. And that was my biggest qualm, was this book should and could have been Jeff Lemire's next Sweet Tooth. It could
Or
have easily.
Descender.
I can't speak on behalf of Descender because I don't really care for Descender, but this gives me more Sweet Tooth vibes, and I think
Okay,
maybe it's because
that
of the
makes
age.
sense.
I think it's maybe because of the age range, the fact that they're not traditional human characters, and things like that. I felt like if this book was extended, maybe not as long as Sweet Tooth, because Sweet Tooth ran for about 75 or so issues.
Wow, was it?
Sweet Tooth was
I thought it was
75?
I thought it was 25, maybe 30.
I don't think it was 25. Hold on, we've got the big boy here. I've got the big boy. This seems more like 25. 40 issues.
Wow.
So we'll
okay.
cut it half.
Yeah.
So Sweet Tooth was 40 issues. I feel like even if we trimmed it to 20 or 25, I think we could have really set up this universe. We could have really set up these characters. We could have really connected and bonded with them. Because listen, when I read Sweet Tooth at the beginning of the year, I bonded so heavy over Gus and Bobby and even Shepard because I had time. And this was a whole wave of emotions I went through because it was 40 issues with these characters. So I felt something with these characters. I can't even tell you the names of the characters in Little Monsters.
I'm always, for me, whenever stories do that, and this might be a spoiler, so I'm sorry, but I feel like whenever stories do that, it's because they're ultimately going to kill them off. So I feel like, are they going to do that to these characters? But you're right.
But if they kill them off, I don't care. You know, you could kill off 4 of them, you could kill off none of them, you could kill off all of them. I would have no emotional ties to any of these characters because I didn't have a chance to thrive and grow with these characters.
Great.
Now, according to Josue says that, you know, the solicitations for the trade say that this is the quote-unquote first arc.
Oh.
And if that's the case, okay, I get that. I would.
But you should have done a better. You should have done a better job of establishing the characters. Exactly. And I think too, like, we're discovering the world the same time as the characters are, so like that helps us get invested. I wish that this had done like what Descender does, and like
we don't have a focus point in Little Monsters because we're given 5 characters and we're being tossed between the perspectives of all 5 characters. Whereas if we take, I know I'm comparing to Sweet Tooth again, but this is what I have to compare it to. Sweet Tooth, we were gone through the eyes of Gus and occasionally through the eyes of Shepard. But we, along with Gus, got to learn about the world, got to world build with him, got to meet characters with him, form relationships with him. And then when the story eventually comes to its end, the emotional weight of the end of the story, because I'm not going to spoil it because I didn't know about the ending of the story. And when I learned about the ending, it destroyed me. You know, it was a weight because I journeyed with this character. I spent hours with this character. I'm not getting that with these little vampires. And I want that because the idea of vampires and children vampires at that are just abandoned. There's so much you can do with it.
There is. And so maybe it'll do it in the next arc if there is one.
Do better, Jeff.
Do better, Jeff. Since we're kind of talking, like that was an Image book. Do you have any other Image books?
I have a lot of Image books.
Okay.
I have a lot of Image books.
One of the books that I got, I know you're not reading it, so I'll go ahead and I'll just like pull it out and mention it. Department of Truth, issue number 19. This book has strayed so far away, at least the last couple issues strayed so far away from where it was initially with the first arc, and finally with issue 19, I feel like it's getting back to it.
What's like the conspiracy now?
Well, the conspiracies have gone everywhere from like UFO land, like it was like a Monster of the Week type thing. This one feels like it's going back to the original arc. We get to see moments of Cole, and we see Cole and his husband. So we get to see moments of, like, we haven't seen his husband for like 2 volumes, it feels like, since the first volume. So I'm glad it's getting back to that. And they're literally like going back onto a, did they go back onto a plane, or they did something that mentioned stuff that happens in the first issue. So this one didn't feel monster of the week to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad it's finally getting back to that.
Did you, because Manic 23 has popped up, did you check out Starhenge?
I did. I'm trying to find it.
So I read it.
What are your, so the premise of Starhenge is like Merlin in the future, right? Merlin goes to
I'm going to be
space.
honest. I don't know what the hell happened in this book. I like the concept of this book in terms of, so again, don't know what the hell I read. Can't comprehend anything I read, but I kind of just like looking at the artwork because it reminded me a lot of like the fantasy books and the sci-fi picture books that like I used to read with my grandmother and that were from like the 80s and 90s, and I really like that vibe that it gave me. And I thought that some of the spreads from Liam Sharp, because Liam Sharp both wrote and illustrated this book, I thought that they were fantastic and phenomenal. And I found myself spending an egregious amount of time just looking at the art. But I didn't really care about the story itself. You know, I felt like I was 4 again. When I was like 12, I would pull the book off my grandmother's shelf and I was enamored by the picture. That's how I felt with it.
I 100% agree. I didn't know what was going on with it, but I really enjoyed getting lost in the artwork. It reminded me of H.R. Giger and like the weird sci-fi horror. I think the thing that I had an issue with the most is that I felt like I couldn't tell who was narrating this book. So the first like several pages is just really all narration, and I don't really know who's narrating it, but then it gets to points where it's like people are talking and I'm like, wait, who are these characters? I still really, really, really wanted to like this book. But I needed like a central character to bring it around, and it didn't do that.
Yeah.
But I still really like it, and I still really want to read it. Is that weird?
No, because it seems like a weird book for you.
It is a really weird book, and I trust Image enough to maybe I do, maybe I don't. I trust Liam Sharp, and I like their artwork. I can't tell if this is going to be a trade weight for me or not.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird little book.
I needed more of it, though, for sure.
Other books from Image. I don't even know where to start. So let me. I feel like I've been talking bad about a lot of books. Let me talk positive about a book. Because this book was probably my favorite book from the past 2 weeks, and that was Public Domain by Chip Zdarsky.
Yeah.
Now, Public Domain is written and illustrated by Chip Zdarsky, and confuse me or correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that this book started out as his Substack original,
I think
and then
so.
was published by Image. So going into that, I immediately had like a chip on my shoulder. No pun intended. No pun intended. I had a chip on my shoulder because I'm like, fuck you, Substack. Which, by the way, I meant to tell this in the beginning of news. Substack has recently laid off 40% of its staff.
Oh, nice.
So Substack, you know, that's the way to go. That's the future of comics. So I was already.
And just, I have to mention this. I didn't know that they laid off 40% of their staff, but they also, in order to incentivize people to come over to Substack, were giving away like hundreds of thousands of dollars to creators to come into Substack.
Yep. And now they're laying off 40% of staff. So, you know, future comics, guys. But so I was already kind of pissed off that, you know, this was a Substack book. Now it was being published by Image. It was like, what's the point of even having a fucking Substack at that point? You might as well just publish it at Image. Whatever. Chase your money, creators. That's a conversation for another day. This book broke me.
Wow.
In like a weird way. So when I was reading this book the entire time, I thought about Olympia, which is done by Chris Pierce over at Image, where it's a giant conversation on the comic industry.
Yeah.
Public Domain, I think, takes that a step further because Olympia kind of covers comic industry as it's starting out, whereas Public Domain kind of takes it further, modernize it, takes a look specifically at things like the MCU and the DCEU and the treatment of its creators and says, you know what, fuck it. We're going to have a conversation about this, whether you like it or not, whether you're uncomfortable about it or not. So it's basically this older father who is a comic book artist. Is he the artist or the
But he
writer?
was the writer. Yeah.
He's the writer.
Because they keep wanting scripts or
He's
something.
a comic book creator. And he's being invited out to like the millionth premiere for a comic character that he has worked on. And the entire time, you know, we see press interviews with like the main character and the main actor, and he talks about how he's never read a comic book, that this is just a role for him and he's just here for the money.
And you can tell he's just reciting because he's like talking about like, I really love being part of this modern mythology of superheroes. And he just like,
and it's just bullshit PR stuff that he's been sprouting. But then we get to see the father go to the millionth premiere, and even though the father's been to this millionth premiere and he's being paid dog shit, he is still so happy to be a part of it and to see his characters come to life, no matter how watered down they might be or how much they don't care about the original source material, you know. And it hits home because we've talked about it a lot on this channel. Creators like Jim Starlin and Ed Brubaker that have essentially lost out on thousands, if not millions of dollars because they're not being treated fairly for the characters and stories that have built these $1 million corporations at this point. $1 billion corporations, if we're looking at Marvel specifically. And at the end of this book, we find out that, you know, the creator holds 100% of the rights for this entire MCU verse. I'm just going to call it the MCU verse because it's clearly everything about this book is subtle, but not subtle because you can tell exactly what it's talking about. And it's not going to name, obviously, it's not going to call it the MCU, but it's going to get as close to it as it can so you know exactly what we're referring to.
exactly.
And I like it because we see this conversation a lot on Twitter from comic creators. And I think the idea of a creator like Chip Zdarsky who can do it in a subtle, funny, haha, but also fuck you sort of way.
Yeah.
I really, really like that because you can tell in this book, and I feel like it's not being talked about enough. I don't think Chip's here to take any prisoners. Like he's here to name names. Like it's almost like this is how he wants to talk, but he can't because he's under some sort of contract. So it's like, fuck it, I'm gonna change the names, change the way that they look, and put it out there anyway.
Agreed. I think that Chip could have easily been writing this and like specifically saying Mickey Mouse, Disney, Marvel, MCU, like could literally be doing that. And I just imagine that there's going to be a moment like that episode in The Office where Michael writes the play and uses Dwight as a fill-in and like goes to
change the name and then they miss one.
I agree. Yeah. And you're right. When I first started reading this, it gave me vibes of Olympia, where Olympia is a like science fiction story that features like real life characters, in my opinion, like Jack Kirby.
Olympia feels like a love letter to Jack Kirby.
Oh, it
Public Domain feels like a love letter to all of our modern creators that are still with us and that are still fighting through this. So Jim Starlin, Ed Brubaker, you name it. It's two different stories, but I think two different stories on the same coin.
Yes. So this one is not a superhero story. This is not a fantasy story. This is like, I dare call it a slice of life comic because it feels like this could easily be the life of someone, of a comic book creator who's out there, who just gets invited to the premieres because it's like, you know, oh, they work in comics, invite them to the show.
It'll be good press for us, you know?
Yeah. But without actually giving them the
recognition and pay that they deserve.
So I would say don't go into this thinking it's going to be a superhero book because it is not. It's about the real life superheroes who are the comic book creators.
And I think that if you're a part of the comic community, if you read comics on a regular basis, I think the more involved and invested into comics and maybe even the MCU the more you'll enjoy this book.
Agreed.
So there's another book though that was new from Image last week. Sins of Black Flamingo. I didn't like this book. I thought it was very boring and very stale. It's essentially supposed to be about a queer detective, for lack of a better word. And first of all, I'm not a huge fan of like plain old detective stories to begin with, but like I feel like this story was like half in, half out if it wanted to be gay or if it wanted to just be a detective story. And I feel like if you're giving me a gay detective, you need to lean all the way to your gay detective. That being said, Trad Moore gives us some really great artwork, especially that last page.
Yes.
It's pretty great. So thank you.
I feel like I want to read it almost just. The last page was probably one of the best moments. Like I like little cliffhangers like that. But you're right. I feel like there's moments that this because
It was
this
messy.
character, it was like it felt like Black Flamingo as a character. It's like you know how like Midnighter's gay, but is like subtly gay. Let's like make a Midnighter type character, but like let's make him flamboyant. And it feels like the punchline is this person's queerness. But there are also moments where it's like it makes fun of like Nazis and stuff, which I thought those were the moments that I really liked, where it's like Nazis are bad. Like any comic book that says Nazis are bad, I'm gonna like. But it feels like it is a gay pride parade made for straight people.
Yep. And it's unfortunate because this book is written by Andrew Wheeler, who is part of the queer community. And I know we had talked about this before when we read it, was Andrew Wheeler tends to do a lot of queer coded stories, but none of them tend to land. So Andrew Wheeler has done Another Castle, which was published by Oni. And it was like a all ages fantasy adventure featuring a lot of queer characters. They were also responsible for Justice League Queer during the round robin last year, and then got featured in a couple of things here and there. And the Justice League Queer stories, again, felt like they were being written for straight people, and it was really awkward. As much as I want to support Andrew Wheeler, because Andrew Wheeler was a comic journalist turned comic writer, and listen, you're living my dream, buddy. Sometimes maybe the writing's just not for me.
I think that's it. Maybe this is one of those cases where the writing just, it's a good book and it's going to be a good book for someone, but for me it didn't land. I'm intrigued because like I know I can show this, but like the last page literally is like
Chef
it's
kiss.
very nice. So
It gives me Luna vibes.
Okay, yeah, this is a Luna, the boyfriend,
the spiritual boyfriend.
We'll see with this one. The jury's still out for me. There's one book by Image. I don't think that you've been keeping up with it, but Twig.
No, I decided after 2, I'm done. It's just not my jam.
I'm gonna say there was a lot of fervor, excitement over Kanto. Mm-hmm. To me, this is Kanto. Like this is just a cute little adventure. I don't want to say there's so much world building going on that we don't like, it's just a background world that's been created, but I still really like it because it's really just about this adorable little character, and I really love it, and it has a lot of heart. It's a good palate cleanser.
I think we should just keep running through Image because there's a lot through Image.
I've got 2 for Image.
2? Oh, that's it?
Mm-hmm.
8 Billion Genies #2. Did you get a chance to read it?
I did. So maybe I have 3.
8 Billion Genies #2 came out. I really liked this book when it came out last month. It's exactly how it sounds. 8 billion genies show up, say you have one wish, figure it out, do what you want. In this one, we kind of get to see a little bit more of the world building. So I really like the idea that issue 1 was about the first 8 minutes. Issue 2 is about the first 8 days. Issue 3 is supposed to be about the first 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Or no, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The first issue was the first 8 minutes. The second issue was the first 8 hours. This one is supposed to be about the first 8 days. Or third is supposed to be out 8 days. And then I guess we're going to continue with the 8s until I guess somebody unalives the Earth. I really like this book. I just think it's really smart. It's really funny. There's a lot of like underlying commentary, I think, that's in it because, it literally does pose a question of if you were given one wish, what were you to wish for? But then we get to learn some of the rules of the genies where it's like, hey, if one person wishes for this person to die, but this person, okay, let's not say that. If one person wishes for world peace, but the other person wishes for the world to explode, those wishes cancel out. So both of those wishes get wasted, but we're not going to do anything because we just think it's funny. And I'm like, okay, I like that. We're learning more about the rules of these genies. Not only that, but as Stapled Horror's Spine Zine has said, and I was going to get to that, you beat me to it, it's been optioned, which is one of the quickest options that we've seen from Image, where it's not already a, like an AWA book where it's made specifically to be optioned. And I gotta say, I think this would be fun if it was optioned.
I think so too. And I think that this could easily it reminded me of one of those Black Mirror episodes.
Yes.
Where the first, was it written by John Scalzi, and it was like the milk one or the yogurt one, where it's like a commentary on the world, but it's a did I say Black Mirror? I meant Love, Death, Robots. So it reminded me of the Love, Death, Robots episode written by John Scalzi, where it's like something about the milk, I forget. Where it is, and it's like narrated. Anyways, I feel like this could be one of, like, if it does get picked up and ultimately done. This book is really smart in a really dumb, fun way, or maybe it's dumb in a really smart way. It's one of the two. Like you said, there's a moment where there's a world leader, like the president of America, who's like, America's going to be, their wish is going to be
that they're the best country in the world.
That they're the best country in the world, that they are now the biggest superpower. Well, duh, every other country in the world is going to say that. And like, there's just a really funny moment where the president at the time is like, someone else has to, I'm not going to use my
somebody else has to use the wish, and it's just, and then that person uses the wish and they're like, I would do anything for my country, Mr. President.
For my country.
But then you got the little genies pop up that are like, what I said about that little rule about contradictory wishes? Well, every other country kind of wished to be the world superpower, and we're just going to cancel it out because that's not fun for us. And I'm like, I want to learn more about these genies, and I feel like we're going to as time goes on, and we get to see that they have little personalities and little quirks. Listen, I wasn't expecting to enjoy this series as much as I did, and I felt like after Bolero and Step by Bloody Step, there was going to be like this Image void, but I feel like 8 Billion Genies is coming in and is like, all right, let's give you something to be looking forward to every month. So
exactly,
I really like it.
It's really fun. And there's going to be 8 issues of this going on that.
Of course there is, because 8 is our magic number.
8 is the number.
Another book that came out, another issue 2 from Image, The Closet. I really, really like this. Listen, I'm gonna be honest with y'all. All right, so that little freak that shows up, that's what his name is. He's the little freak. First of all, whoever fucking designed this thing, fuck you. Because the week that we covered this book, I fucking had nightmares.
I'm sorry. Trigger warning here. I'm going to show.
Trigger me with the little freak. Okay, so the little freak's coming through. I just don't like this little freak, and he's just all teeth, and he's a little black void with teeth. I don't like him. So I sleep in front of our closet. Like the way our bed is I am literally facing my closet, and my closet is open for our cat because it's his little sleeping place, and he likes to sleep at the bottom of the closet. Okay. I literally sat there for, it must have been an hour, because I kept thinking this little freak was going to crawl out of the closet. Okay. So I don't like the little freak. The little freak can fuck off. Congratulations. If this thing ever gets adapted, I'm screwed, because I will have nightmares for a straight month, and we'll be sleeping with the lights on. It's fine. It's whatever. But I like this issue because we basically get to learn what a shitty fucking father our main character is. Like, he is just the biggest piece of fucking shit. He's complaining that he doesn't have time to play with fucking Legos anymore because he has to be a dad. His marriage is failing. He doesn't get to do what he wants anymore. And I think it's funny because, you know, you have this child that's afraid. And, you know, we see a lot in horror movies and horror stories and horror comics, you know, the story of a fucking father or mother that would do anything to protect their child from this unspeakable horror.
And this dad
And
could give a shit less.
I'm fully expecting the little freak to show up, trademark pending, the little freak. I'm fully expecting the little freak to show up and for the dad to like shove his child and be like, fuck them kids.
Yeah. This dad is a certified piece of shit. And like while reading this, I'm just like, straight people, are you okay? Because the way that he talks about his marriage, like literally, he like goes. So the premise of this is that this man and this wife and husband are moving out to Portland, Oregon, and they're talking about like, I think that they're using it as like, moving there is going to save our relationship. And so they're bringing their kid along with them because, of course, and the kid has nightmares about the closet that is haunted by the little freak. And he gets scared, and then the dad is like, don't worry. So anyways, that was issue 1. Issue 2, they go to a friend's house. They are driving out to Portland. They stop at the husband's friend's house, and he's basically like complaining the whole time, it feels like. And then it's revealed that apparently he cheated on his wife.
Straight people, are you okay?
Straight people, are you okay? So a lot of this book wasn't really a horror story that had to deal with the little freak in the closet. It was really just like, what is the horror of like a straight monogamous relationship?
The horror of a bad parent is what it is.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really like this book.
Yeah.
It's a slow burn, but it's a slow burn with character interactions and dialogue and conversation.
Hear me out. This is only supposed to be 3 issues long, so the next issue is going to be the last one.
Wait, is it really?
I'm pretty sure that's what I don't know if like you can verify, someone in the chat can verify, but I'm pretty sure it was an issue 2.
I'm gonna go to Previews World right now and I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna type in the little freak in the closet. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, little freak in the closet.
We need to rename it as little freak in the closet. It doesn't even pop up.
Yeah, yep, the closet. 1 of 3.
I don't like that.
So that's one of my complaints about this, because in this issue, where is
this book gonna go then? Like, what the? So here's the thing: if I had known, I was fully expecting this to be like a 6-issue type thing. Now that I know it's only 3, I'm like, this is kind of a bad book.
I don't know if that makes it more intriguing, because I'm like, I need to know how they wrap it up.
That's a bad book. Not only that, but why is the trade $15 for 3 issues? That don't make any sense.
It doesn't. Right. That should definitely be a $9.99 book.
Enough with a little freak. We're moving on from a little freak. Goodbye, little freak.
Did you read this book? I didn't.
I told you I dropped that book. Okay.
I didn't read it.
I've sold my issues and everything, and
I'm sorry to anyone. I really wanted to like this book, and I'm lost. So I kind of want to read it in trade, but I kind of don't. We'll see.
I want to read that book so bad, but so a new book from Image. You might not have gotten it because of who writes it. Prodigy, the Icarus Society. So I'm gonna kind of run it down real quick because it's written by Mark Millar. Prodigy, the Icarus Society is basically Mark Millar wanting really, really bad to write an Iron Man story and a Batman story, and I guess being denied from both Marvel and DC. So he was like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna write my own." It's basically a rich man. A rich black man, which I'm actually surprised about. I feel like that's Mark Millar trying to play the I'm different card, because it could have easily been a white man, and I mean, I'm glad it's not a white man, but
that could easily have been I think we're giving too much credit to Mark Millar.
Giving way too much credit to Mark Millar.
That could have easily been a decision by the artist.
I'm 90% sure that it was either a decision by the artist or a decision by the editor, because otherwise this book would feel more than generic than it already is.
Forced diversity strikes again.
Forced diversity strikes again. But he's basically this rich man that is good at everything. He's smart. He's fit. He's handsome. He's rich. He's Batman. He's Iron Man. And it's just really fucking bizarre. And then he's being like chased around by this little Riddler-esque freak who's in prison and is laying out all these clues for him and wants him to fucking follow in his footsteps and do the society. And this rich man who has no fucking police training, I mean, a cop, motherfuckers, but he's got no authority to be involved in these crimes, is showing up to these crime scenes. He wants to write a Batman book so fucking bad. And then there's a really awkward scene where he sleeps with this woman because, he's the rich, handsome bachelor. So, of course, he does one of these, pay $1 million to go on a date with me type thing. The woman wins, goes on a date with him, sleeps with him, wakes up the next morning while he's in his little Bat Cave, Iron Man cave. Because, again, Mark Millar is trying so bad to write a Batman book. She wakes up, is given a robe by a robot, and then asks the robot to turn around because she's uncomfortable. And he's like, well, don't worry because I'm not alive. And she's like, but you still have a camera. Please turn around. And I'm like, that's cringe, bro. Please stop writing comic books. Stop letting Mark Millar write comics. Let Mark Millar just write a Batman comic at this point because the man wants to so fucking bad.
Ew. That's all I have to say is that I know
Mark
I
Millar
read some.
is just ew.
I know that I read some weird stuff. I know I read some stupid shit. I know that I love buying dumb shit for myself, but I also just I can't. That's where I draw the line.
It was weird. It was bad.
I've got one last Image book.
Metal Society? Oh, yeah, no, I totally forgot. So, yeah, let's talk about it. Yeah.
I want to say that I liked this book. Like, I like Saga, and I think that I like the second half of this returning arc more than I like the first one. But I also am underwhelmed that we waited 3 years for this.
Yep.
And even though, so of course, in true Saga fashion, the end of the issue and the end of the arc gives us a cliffhanger. But I also I'm tired of it.
I'm tired of it. So we'll get to that point. I want to save that for when we wrap up the book because that pisses me off to an extent. I gotta scream about it. But I agree with you completely. We waited 3 years for what felt like a very, very mediocre arc. There's a lot of strings and a lot of questions that are still being left unraveled.
Yeah.
I will say that this issue in particular brought back Marco's mother, and I really like seeing her again. So it felt, I always get excited when I get to see these characters pop up again because we haven't seen them in 2.5 years. It's kind of like a where are they now? I want to see what they're doing. I want to see what's up. But I'm still not okay with how the last issue ended with Squire confessing his love to Hazel. And then it felt like in this issue, we tried to rationalize that it's okay because it's just my adoptive brother. And it feels like Umbrella Academy all over again, where it's like, I'm sorry, if you are raised with this person as your sibling, I don't care if you are blood or not. It's still kind of ick.
And Hazel
still ick.
Hazel also goes to Alana and like says something about it, right? Or she says something to, is it her mom? Anyways, I think that Alana is a really good mom, but I feel like the only moments that we get to, I think that Alana as a mother would equally mother Alana and Squire, and I feel like we're only seeing mother moments between her and Hazel.
I agree.
So I think that, I don't know if it was, I mean, I know, I get it. Brian Kevon, you're writing the book. I'm not writing the book, but I would have written a moment where Alana goes to Squire and has a conversation about that as opposed to just saying, forget about it.
That being said, before I kind of blow up on this book, because I'm getting ready to blow up on the book, I will say the last, 3 pages were probably some of my favorite Saga moments. And to me, the last 3 pages is what Saga is. It's these emotional, detrifying moments that make you feel with these characters that, again, we've grown with since the early 2000s. I feel her pain and I feel her sorrow. I'm not going to say what happens, but I feel this character's pain and sorrow, and it kind of made me break a little, both as a mother, and this is weird because I have no desire in becoming a mother. I don't have a mothering bone in my body, but I feel for, these characters.
Yeah.
So again, in good Saga fashion, that's great. That being said, let's talk about the elephant in the fucking room, because I posted something on Twitter this morning and I'm getting a lot of people that are saying, wait, what is going on? So for those of you who don't know, let's buckle up. Saga is one of the few books that I actually read the author notes on, because Brian K. Vaughan just has such a weird little fucked up mind, and it's kind of interesting to see how his brain works and how it jumps from place to place and things like that. Saga is going on another fucking hiatus and is not scheduled to come back until January of 2023. So in 6 months, we'll get the return of Saga, which is fucking... Go ahead.
I don't get it, because we waited 3 years for this arc.
It's unacceptable. I'm sorry. I'm going to say it. I understand that creators are doing other things. Brian K. Vaughan's got Paper Girls coming out. Fiona Staples is being a mom. Great, do that. But 6 months, I can understand a month or two. 6 months is fucking ridiculous. Not only that, but you heard it here fucking first. Casually Comics, July 10th, 3:26 p.m., fucking whatever time it is, your time, whatever. Saga's not coming back in fucking January. We're not going to see Saga again until at least a fucking year. I'm calling it right now.
You think it's going to get delayed again?
I think it's going to get delayed again.
What do you think is going to cause the delay?
Bullshit. And it frustrates me, because they know that this is the biggest comic. When you look at the comic chart sales, Saga tops Marvel, DC, Indie when it fucking returned. Even though they didn't do second printings, this book fucking sold out everywhere. Despite it being gone for 3 years, people still loved this story. People still loved these characters. We still wanted to know what was going on. And even those that maybe didn't grow with this book, they heard the return of it. They knew it was a huge book, and so they jumped into it. There's so many people that maybe were reading comics post when Saga came out, or even post when Saga went on hiatus, and read through the entire series to pick up. So we're going to do another delay for 6 fucking months? For 6 months. What is the fucking reasoning? And that's the thing, is they can't even give a reason. They're just like, oh, we're going on a longer delay than normal. And I'm here thinking to myself, oh, okay, you're doing a 1 or 2 month thing? No big deal. Do what you got to do. And then they're like, yeah, no, January. And I'm like, what?
So maybe let's take bets on when we think...
A year. I'm calling it. It's going to be a year.
One of the things... this will be my last thought about Saga this week. But one of the things that I did notice, because I was reading the questions, so they did a reader survey. So instead of questions coming in from readers that the author or artist, they sent out a survey to the readers, and one of them was, "How's your local comic shop doing?" This was question number 17. How's your local comic shop doing? Awesome. Books with pictures allows dogs inside, and they gave my dog a treat. Books with pictures, Portland, Oregon.
Perfect.
So, anyways, just had to mention that. Come to Portland. We've got lots of comic shops and dogs.
And dogs.
That's all I got for those. I still have half my indie stack left, so I'm going to go through these maybe a little bit quickly.
Yeah, I only have 2.5-ish that I really... Well, no, sorry. Yeah, two and a half, maybe 3 that I really want to touch on.
Okay. I'm going to go through some of these. Doctor Who, this lady, I can't think of what they call her. The False Doctor or something like that. I really enjoyed the second issue more than I liked the first. The Fugitive Doctor is what they call her. Really, I'm enjoying this a lot, actually. So, yeah. I don't know anything about that doctor. I tried to read Endangered, but this is published by Blood Moon Comics. A weird, apocalypse happens, and anyways, it just felt like another post-apocalyptic book. Did you happen to get Agents of World? I feel like a lot of people were talking about this one. It's done by Scout Comics. I This was one of those books where I really liked the artwork, but I had no clue what was going on. If you liked Post Americana, that was published by Image the last couple years, I think that you would really like that one. Remember how I said a couple weeks ago, Neverender by Behemoth, issue number 1 was really, really good?
Mm-hmm.
Behemoth did it to me again. I didn't like issue 2.
Right.
I was confused, and I'm like, wait, where
Have
am
you
I
learned your
at?
lesson yet?
No, never. Um, Mega Centurions, also published by Scout Comics. I really enjoyed this one. This woman who like used to be a superhero type thing ends up kind of getting like thrust back into it. I really liked the artwork on the inside. So yeah. Let's see here. I didn't read those. Did you happen to get Promethea 1313?
No.
This one felt like Stargazer by Mad Cave. So basically what happens is, but in a completely different way. So there is this woman who she's going to like a UFO conference to talk about how she was like kidnapped or had like an abducted or had an experience when she was younger. And it turned, she's like taking drugs to make her not have like psychosis, antipsychosis drugs.
Keep talking, I'll be right back.
Okay. So she ends up, she's at this conference and then she's like, okay, I'm going to say something that y'all don't agree with. And she's like, it's all fake. None of it happened. It was all a vision. But then all of a sudden stuff starts going down. I really enjoyed this book, Promethea 1313. I don't think that this was the A cover. I think this is one of the variant covers, but it is published by Ablaze. And I really liked this. Let's see here. I know I did just kind of like talk trash a little bit about Behemoth, but I did pick up Redman from the creators of Ultraman, and this was a quick and easy read, pretty easy to get into, very, very Ultraman-like, and it was kind of fun. So I did like this Behemoth book. It was in issue number 1. I don't think that Mars got this book either. Metal Society number 3, done by Zach Kaplan and Guillermo Balbi. This one is, if you read Not All Robots by AWA Publishing, it's basically a book where humanity has not survived, but the robots that they created did, and then the robots ended up creating humans. So then this particular human, I think her name is Rosa, ends up needing to fight a robot. And it's going to be like this big championship where she fights a robot and goes head to head. So a lot of this issue is her training. So it's kind of like montagey, like that Rocky montage of training how to fight. So that's kind of what she's doing here. But it's a pretty interesting exploration on what a human is and what is a human that's been created by robots to fight. So I'm really enjoying this one. You didn't get Metal Society number 3?
I read number 3, but I didn't really care for it, so I think I'm going to drop it.
I like it. I like the conversation. Like a lot of stuff clicked for me in this issue, so I liked it. Okay, so I think that I only have 5 more books left, and I think that some of them are going to be some of the same books. So, did you happen to read There's Something Wrong with Patrick Todd?
I did.
What were your thoughts on this one?
I really like this book.
Oh, I felt like I couldn't get through it. But it's really because it was at the end of my stack and I was pretty tired.
I really, really like this book. I know I said that Public Domain was my favorite book of the past 2 weeks. Public Domain technically was last week. Something is Wrong with Patrick Todd was this week. So I think that would make Something is Wrong with Patrick Todd my favorite book of the week. Right off the bat, I really like how this book just kind of grabbed me and sucked me in. So it's essentially about this kid who has telepathic powers and a mother who has a deteriorating mental state. They can't really tell what is wrong with her. So she's in a facility. And in order for him to not only pay for his mother's treatment, but also to just survive, uses his mental telepathic abilities to rob banks. And in doing so, he essentially takes over the minds of criminals. So in the first issue, we see that he takes over the mind of a pedophile and essentially makes the pedophile rob a bank, come out, hand over the money to him, and then go turn himself in. And it's kind of like this whole mystery of this kid on the run with these powers, but then you have this other group that is kind of encroaching on it, and you can tell that there are other people that have these powers. We don't know where these powers are coming from. This book gives me We Can Never Go Home vibes, which is one of my favorite comics of all time. I don't know. It's been a while since I've had a book from Aftershock really, really grab me the way that this one did. And I don't know. I really like this one. I'm surprised you didn't like it.
Like I said, I felt like I was very confused with what was going on. And I think part of the reason why I didn't connect with this book as much is because it was literally at the end of my stack. So by the time I got to this one, I had read 30 other books at this point. So I'm like, I need to put books. So anyways, now that you say that, and now that you say that We Can Never Go Home, that clicks for me. So now I'm probably going to read this one as soon as we jump off. I'm probably going to read this.
So good. I really love it.
I'm specifically putting it in another spot. Did you happen to pick up The Ward #2?
I did.
Okay.
So again, this book, it gets a little weird. I love the concept of this, where it's this hospital that is specifically for, and it kind of gives you like Grey's Anatomy type vibes.
Yeah.
That being said, I've never seen Grey's Anatomy.
I've never seen Grey's Anatomy either, but
gives you Grey's Anatomy vibes, but with monsters and fantasy creatures. And I think that that's really exciting because we see in this issue in particular a troll giving birth, and then they have to do a C-section, blah blah blah. At one point,
there's like live streamers or whatever like coming down who are going to video. Yeah.
It's weird, but then you also have at one point that there's somebody stuck in gelatin, and they're talking about how they have to get them out of the gelatin because if not, it's going to what's the word I'm looking for? Not absorb, but it's going to melt away their bones and stuff. Dissolve. That's what I'm looking for. Yeah. Disintegrate. It's going to melt their bones. And I'm like, I love these like individual stories that we're telling. The problem is we're telling them all at once rather than, and I think I said this with our first issue, I feel like if we kind of sectioned it off, made it like a full-on Grey's Anatomy type thing where each issue was dedicated to a different type of monster creature of the week scenario, I think it would definitely play up with strength a lot more. Because in the first issue, we had this whole backstory of this doctor who supposedly wasn't with them, but then for some reason got dragged back in. And in issue 2, she's just doing the thing as if nothing ever happened. And I'm like, wait a second, I thought you were reluctant to come back.
Yeah, I mean, there are moments where that character has, because she drops off her daughter at the grandmother's house, and the grandmother's just like, oh, you're going on a date. And so like there was a moment where so we do get to see a little bit, but you're right. I wish that this was like, because not only is there a moment with the gelatinous cube, there's also a banshee that comes in, and that's all while a separate group is handling the giant giving birth under like these subway tunnels. So you're right. I do wish that this was a monster of the week, or at least give me, you deal with one monster, then go to the next one, and then go to the next one, as opposed to all simultaneously happening at once. But in all reality, that's kind of the nature of hospitals, right?
That's true. That is true.
But for me reading it, I'm really surprised that this is Dark Horse. Like I would expect this coming from like Vault or Aftershock. Boom. Yeah. I've got 3 left.
I have 2. No, I lied. I have 3.
Okay. I'm really curious if you read this one, Mindset.
I did. It was, listen, I like the concept. So it's like this futuristic horror type tale where a group of, it's essentially almost like the Social Network with horror vibes.
Social Network with like, that was the beginning of Facebook, was the Social Network. But this is like, what is going to be the next social network? Like, how has technology evolved?
And I think that the concept is great for a lot of people. But we've established on here multiple times that I have a brain the size of a goldfish, and this was way too dense and way too wordy for my liking. So it's a pass from me, but I know that somebody out there will like it.
I agree, and I loved the artwork. I loved the concept of it. I don't necessarily know if the execution was right for me. I think one of the reasons why, kind of in the same way as Variants, where I knew what the premise of the book was going into reading it, and I feel like at the end there wasn't enough cliffhanger for me at the end, or there wasn't enough, like, even though this is kind of like an extreme book, um, a big part of this book is the main character going around trying to get someone to help him with something so he can pass his final exam.
Yeah.
But it's about these dude bros who basically create an app that can mind control people, and they're trying to mind control people for good. They're trying to, like, make it disestablishmentarian. I don't know. They're basically trying to, like, make it anti-capitalist. They're trying to make it like open platform. It feels like, where, which I like and I agree with, but I don't know. Something didn't click for me. Maybe I need to read more. Maybe I need to wait for the trade. But I know people really liked this book.
A lot of people really liked it. A lot of people were saying it's the best woke comic ever, and I'm like, are you sure about that?
Have you read These Savage Shores?
Yeah.
What book do you want to? I know we have the same last two books.
So there's one book I definitely want to save for last.
Is it because it ended?
Yep.
Or okay. So then this one?
Tiger's Tongue.
Okay.
So this is a new story from Mad Cave Studios. It is an Afro fantasy book about these two sisters in a warring kingdom, and they've got animal familiars, and this book is just really cute, and it gives me Isla vibes. And if I'm not getting new Isla content, because it's been years and years now, and at this point I've given up, you know, Tiger's Tongue is kind of helping to fulfill that vibe. And I don't know, Mad Cave just is really, really great with making these all-age fantasy stories that are engaging for everybody. Oh, yeah, it does give Sarah and the Royal Stars vibes.
Sarah and the Royal Stars vibes so much,
yeah,
in such a good way.
You're right.
But anyways,
I don't know. I just really like seeing more fantasy books that aren't just your typical white fantasy.
White European, like, kingdom type stuff, because there is a lot of, like, political intrigue in this and family intrigue, which I really, really liked. I agree.
I do.
And the artwork is just, for me, it was beautiful. It reminded me of, is it Avatar and Korra? So I think that if you like shows like that, if you like fantasy as a genre, but you feel like you've read just a lot of the same thing, like formulaic, I think people will really, really like Tiger's Tongue a lot.
I agree.
Okay. One last book on the docket. You introduced me to this book really quick because this ended. I have to tell my origin story with 7 Secrets. I read issue 1. I hated it. I read like 10 issue number 1s that week, and I hated like all of them. I hated this book when it first came out. And you were like, no, it's really good. It's Tom Taylor. It's one of the best books you'll read. And I'm like, I believe you. And I did. I read that first volume in like one sitting, like consumed it. Loved it so much. And I've been following it ever since. And this was the last issue.
I got a lot of feelings.
What were your feelings about it?
I think this book flew too close to the sun.
Oh, ooh, Icarus.
I think it fell. This book flew way too close to the sun. So, this book started off really, really strong, really self-contained. There's 7 secrets, some magical, some physical, some ethereal.
And there's a keeper.
There's a keeper, and there's a holder, and there's a secret society. And it felt, even though it was magical and mystical and really weird, it still felt grounded. And it felt grounded because of its characters, because we were able to follow Caspar as Caspar kind of was introduced to his found family and to his real family, and then people were dying, and then you had this larger than life fight. And I absolutely love the fact that Tom Taylor took the chosen one, or the hero of the story, and made him a person of color, a young black man, because it's not something we see in stories ever. But after the first arc, this story kind of took a turn, and we started dealing with magic and magical creatures. And then we find out that the actual secret has been Caspar all along, because this god that split into two went to Caspar, and it was this fight between good versus evil. And I'm totally okay with the traditional good versus evil fight. Listen, my favorite thing in the world is Star Wars. That is the most clear-cut thing of good versus evil you will ever get. It needed more time. And unfortunately, I feel like this book pulled a die on me, where it introduced so much towards the end, but didn't give me enough time to wrap it up and to kind of consume it. And it felt like this book needed at least another 3 more issues, because it only did go up to issue 18. To kind of add insult to injury, I started reading the first trade last night, and I haven't read the first arc in a while. And the contrast between how it started and how it ended, and the quality, is night and day. And it's really upsetting, because this is still one of my favorite books. That first arc alone, it's another die, where the first arc, and you're on mute, so I don't know if you know that, but you are on mute.
I did.
But that first arc alone is so, it's like die all over again. That first arc is so fucking powerful.
Saying that, I agree that this was a very powerful first arc. It did not drop in quality the way that Die did, in my opinion.
No.
Like, I would still say that this remained more consistent, but you're right. Like, I think that there was a plan for the first arc, and then it got so popular that there was like, okay, let's buff it up for the second arc. Okay, let's buff it up for the third arc. And now Tom Taylor is like writing all of these incredible things elsewhere. And I think that this had to be put on the chopping block so that Tom Taylor could do more. I don't know, maybe there's more indie series coming through. Maybe there's just more Dark Knights of Steel coming through. Not really sure, but it felt like this got too big for its own good.
It did. It got way too big. And it's like, the second arc kind of fell flat. But that third arc, once we got the reveal that Kanto was the traitor, because they even talk about in the first arc that there's a traitor. So for 2 full arcs, I'm here trying to figure out who done it. And then you find out that, oh, it's Kanto. Oh, well, Kanto's also queer. Oh, shit. Well, Kanto's also in a relationship with the main villain. I'm like, fuck, you got me in a box, because now we are taking the traditional hero's journey and we are breaking the fucking mold by introducing your chosen hero as a man of color and your villain as a queer man. And I'm like, okay, we got something going here. We're breaking traditional fantasy molds. But then it just kept getting bigger and bigger and didn't have enough time. It's almost like you're on a train and you're running out of track. That's how Seven Secrets felt.
Agreed.
But I still love it.
I simultaneously want more.
Maybe I'm being too harsh. Maybe it's, I love that beginning so much that I wasn't as happy with 2 and 3, and reading it, I think, issue by issue doesn't help, because there is so much going on in that latter half. Maybe if I sit down and I read it from start to finish all over again, I'll enjoy it more. But I knew opening that final issue 18 that I was going to be upset. And I wasn't nearly as upset as I was worried I was going to be, but I still felt I'm not mad. I'm disappointed.
This book still, it got weird. And anyways, I still really like this book. I would still highly recommend people pick this series up. And I still, even though I didn't love the way that this ended, it ended too abruptly, I still have so much faith in Tom Taylor that my disappointment in this book, at the ending of this book, does not discourage me from going back and rereading it or picking up anything else that Tom Taylor will ever do again, because it's still such a fantastic story.
I agree.
Agreed. I concur.
I concur.
That was a lot of books. We are almost at 3 hours of talking about books, and this is what happens when we miss a week. It's funny because there was one time where we missed 2 weeks and it was like an hour and a half, and you were like, it's so weird that we didn't do 2 hours, and now we did 2 weeks of big weeks, and it's almost at 3. So
it's crazy.
Well, anything else that you have coming up? Anything else that you want to talk? Because it looks like we're probably getting towards the end of the show.
We are. So this is gonna be my little plug. A little book came out this week, showed up on my doorstep. Listen, I had this book pre-ordered and I didn't know that it was coming until I got the little Amazon notification that was like, your package has been delivered. And I'm like, ooh, what is that? So a little book came out, Lore Olympus Volume 2. This is like my favorite comic book of all time. It's not even, is it yeah, it's a comic.
The
web. So Lore Olympus started out as a web comic.
Literature's fun little side hustle.
Literature's fun little side hustle, which is funny because we weren't trashing Lore Olympus, we were just trashing Webtoon. But Lore Olympus is a web comic on Webtoon, comes out weekly. It's a retelling of Persephone and Hades, but it handles themes of abuse and sexual assault, and handles personally, I think that the main character might be bipolar. We just haven't gotten it confirmed yet. So this book is really, really personal to me because of the relationship between these two characters and the way that I look at my own relationship with people. But it's my favorite, and I really like it. And I'm going to be honest, translating a webcomic that was programmed for your phone, you read it this way, the way that they're able to translate the pages and the panels. And kind of reinvent the way that it looks because it is now a book instead of a phone. It's really, really well done. The only thing that worries me is this supposedly covers 26 through 49. So this is volume 2. Covers 26 through 49. We are currently on issue 240. So I did the math the other night and I'm like, how many of these fucking books am I going to have to buy to collect the whole goddamn series? Like, I'm going to have a bookshelf just for fucking Lore Olympus at this point, but that's fine. So yeah, that's a scary thought to think about because these bad boys are like $28 a pop.
Wow.
And this is the one book that I will buy on Amazon because Amazon, if you pre-order it, you usually get it for like less than 20.
Ooh. I don't know why I haven't picked that book up because I feel like it would be such an easy. Maybe I need to like go on Webtoons and read it there.
So good. You should. I would highly recommend reading it. I mean, you can honestly read it either way. The one thing that I like about Webtoons is there are trigger warnings before each chapter. There's trigger warnings at the beginning of all the books, but they don't give you trigger warnings for specific chapters. In the collected volume, as they do on the phone, one major thing I really like about handheld versus say book is there are certain chapters that include music that is composed specifically for the comic, and I really, really love when they do that. Like last night's episode, again, this is my Saturday night routine: is I lay in bed and I read Lore Olympus, and then I struggle if I want to pay extra money to get the future episodes. But last night's episode had music, and I think it enhances some of these integral story moments. So,
well, then I'll definitely be checking that out on Webtoons.
Do it.
Excellent. Well, thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for everyone who has been here hanging out with us for almost 3 hours.
3 hours.
It's been
y'all are nuts.
Y'all are nuts. We are nuts, but we're so happy that you're here. Later tonight here in Portland, there's a book that I picked up and read like a month or so ago, maybe 2 months now, called The High Desert, written by James Spooner. And there's a like documentary called Afropunk. So that's going to be at the Hollywood Theater. I'm going to try to catch that tonight. So, but that's later tonight.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Very excited for that. So thank you so much for everyone for being here. I love you all. Stay safe, and we will see you
next week.
Bye.
Bye.